Chapter 272. Hua Rong Studio. Editor Lin's office. Charlene finally returned the phone that she had previously given to the programmer to unlock. Editor Lin sat in his office chair nervously. In the end, he opened the photo album on his phone and flipped through the photos. Most of the photos were of Tongning and Zhenmani at Hai Rui's celebration dinner. Editor Lin looked at the photos and saw the comparison between Tongning and Zhenmani. Deep down, he was more impressed by Tongning. After all, it wasn't common to see a model that matched their outfit perfectly. But he didn't like the fact that Tongning played with a man and pretended to be innocent. Thinking of this, Editor Lin continued to flip through the photos. To his surprise, he found a few photos of Tongning and Mo Ting being intimate. Especially photos of Tongning hanging onto Mo Ting's arm when she was drunk and Mo Ting carrying her out of the celebration dinner. What a good move, Editor Lin sneered. Today was the day that the news of Mo Ting being gay spread like wildfire. However, if a photo was to be leaked, the rumor would collapse on its own. After all, the two of them were so intimate, no one would believe that they weren't a couple. But he wasn't going to expose it just yet. Finally, he found another piece of evidence. Tongning, it won't be long before your reputation is destroyed. 7 p.m. Caesar Hotel. Hua Jingjing had agreed to go on a blind date with her classmates. To show that she was determined to leave her past behind, she dressed up to the nines. She didn't look any worse than attending an award ceremony. After arriving at the VIP seat, Hua Jingjing noticed the man was already waiting for her. Hua Jingjing looked down at her watch. This young and handsome Frenchman was quite punctual. After working in the industry for so many years, Hua Jingjing was proficient in many languages. So, the two of them had no problems communicating. However, seeing how gentlemanly the man was, Hua Jingjing didn't want to waste his time. So, she directly revealed her background and past experiences. The man listened calmly and occasionally sighed. However, he did not look down on Hua Jingjing in the slightest. This made Hua Jingjing relax. The Frenchman was called Brot. He was the CEO of a jewelry company in Asia. He was gentlemanly and had a successful career. But, up to this day, he was still single. Hua Jingjing had a good impression of this man's mannerisms. At the same time, his facial features were pleasing to the eye. The couple chatted for 3 to 4 hours before Brot escorted Hua Jingjing back to her apartment like a gentleman. Hua Jingjing felt they were a good match, so she immediately gave Tongning a phone call and told her about the blind date. The other party doesn't mind my past at all. There are no problems with our communication, and everything is suitable. I'm very satisfied. Do you simply think it's suitable? For some reason, Tongning felt there was something wrong with Hua Jingjing's mentality. Suitable. Compatibility doesn't mean they can live together forever, because all love is built on the foundation of worship. Had President Hua Jingjing not seen enough? She just felt inferior. To put it more bluntly, she felt that she was just a broken shoe. She didn't have the courage to face people from her own country. If she married a foreigner, she could just emigrate in the future. You'll know once we get to know each other, Hua Jingjing said excitedly. I think Brot will be a great man. Fang Yu wasn't one? Tongning asked in her heart. No matter what, I've already made up my mind. I'll get married in the middle of next year and have a child by the end of the year. Hua Jingjing was already thinking about her future. Did she really not consider Fang Yu at all? Okay, you can give it a try. If it really doesn't work out, you should get out of it. I know. By the way, what's with Quan Yi? Is he trying to slander President Mo? Would Mo Ting be easily slandered by him? Tongning asked angrily. She was only more casual around Hua Jingjing. Don't worry about us. Focus on yourself. This time, don't do anything stupid. Hua Jingjing nodded her head seriously. But, after hanging up the phone, she leaned against the wall and squatted down. For some reason, she still felt lonely. In order to welcome her new life, Hua Jingjing requested to return to work. So, the next day, she returned to the agency with her manager to report to Fang Yu and take over her previous job. During this time, Brot even gave her a phone call and invited her for lunch. Hua Jingjing felt the timing was right, so she told him to wait in the office's parking lot. Hua Jingjing and Fang Yu were the same as before, they only talked about business. It didn't take long for the two to come to an agreement. Afterwards, Fang Yu stood up from his seat and prepared to leave. Where are you going? Do you want me to give you a ride? No need, someone is here to pick me up, Hua Jingjing replied politely. The two walked out of the parking lot together and entered the same area. Just as Fang Yu opened the car door, he saw Hua Jingjing board a foreign man's car. Fang Yu took a closer look and finally realized who was picking Hua Jingjing up. Brot. Without thinking too much, Fang Yu headed straight for the couple's car and dragged Hua Jingjing out of Brot's car. Fang Yu. What are you doing? Fang Yu grabbed her and dragged her into his car. He ignored Brot's shouts and left Hai Rui with Hua Jingjing. Give me an explanation, Hua Jingjing said in a cold tone as she turned her body slightly. Fang Yu's expression was a little dark as he parked the car in a quiet place. After a few seconds of silence, he asked, How did you know Brot? Hua Jingjing was also surprised how Fang Yu knew Brot. Her curiosity suddenly overpowered her anger as she pointed out the window. A classmate introduced me to him. Do you have a brain? Or did your classmate set you up? Hua Jingjing, you're not a child anymore. Can't you tell the difference? Do you know how famous Brot is in the gay industry? Fang Yu questioned Hua Jingjing in disappointment. Hua Jingjing was left speechless. When are you going to improve your judgment of men? At least I'm better than you. You always try to help everyone. Hua Jingjing was so angry that she subconsciously blurted out what was on her mind. Fang Yu was stunned. Hua Jingjing realized she had said the wrong thing, so she quickly shut her mouth and looked out the window. In the end, Fang Yu compromised first as he restarted the car. I'll take you home. I just want to find someone that doesn't look down on me. Hua Jingjing's eyes slowly turned red. So what if I'm an international supermodel? In other people's eyes, I'm just a worn-out broken shoe. Your body isn't as important as you think. If you treat yourself like a broken shoe, no one will take you seriously. If you were, would you want it? Hua Jingjing asked as she turned around in excitement. After asking, she realized she was being too impulsive. Sometimes, when faced with feelings, one would become irrational. No matter how many times one was taught a lesson, one would never learn. Chapter 273. Fang Yu tilted his head and glanced at Hua Jingjing. He replied in seriousness without his usual flippant manner. No one would want someone that constantly denies themselves. Fang Yu's answers had always been flawless. This time, it was no different. He avoided the important points by pointing out that Hua Jingjing wasn't in a good state. At the same time, he avoided the sharp answer that Hua Jingjing wanted. It wasn't a matter of whether he wanted her or not, but, as long as it was a man, no one would want her. Hua Jingjing almost forgot that Fang Yu was the artist's director and PR director of Hai Rui. His words had always been flawless, no one could find any loopholes in them. So, she let out a laugh and sat quietly in the car without saying a word. She didn't like the feeling of being unpredictable and she didn't like hiding things. Most importantly, she was afraid. She had been afraid for a long time. Perhaps he felt the atmosphere in the car was too quiet, so Fang Yu cleared his throat and said to Hua Jingjing, We've arrived. In that case, thank you. You don't need to send me off. After speaking, Hua Jingjing prepared to step out of the car. However, Fang Yu suddenly did something that even he couldn't understand. He leaned over and held onto Hua Jingjing's hand as he explained in a serious tone. It's true that I helped Jin Mani, but I've never treated her like a woman. Hua Jingjing froze for a moment. She was surprised that Fang Yu had actually explained things to her. She then asked, in that case, who did you treat as a woman? Fang Yu let go of Hua Jingjing and replied, my daughter. Hua Jingjing glared at Fang Yu, opened the car door and stepped out of Fang Yu's car. Fang Yu let out a gentle laugh as he waved goodbye to Hua Jingjing and drove out of the apartment. Although Hua Jingjing hadn't completely calmed down, at least Fang Yu had explained things to her. However, it was quite tiring to speak so carefully. On the other hand, was the classmate that introduced her to Tongning on purpose? Or, was it unintentional? If it was intentional, then it could only mean that the culprit was truly ruthless. In the end, the blind date incident turned into Fang Yu's interference. This time, Hu Jingjing did not tell Tangning about it because she wanted to keep it to herself. The next morning. Hyatt Regency. When Tangning didn't have work to do, she would personally help Mo Ting choose clothes. So, it was common to see Mo Ting standing naked in front of the mirror as Tangning brought his clothes over to her and helped him put them on, piece by piece. Because of this, Mo Ting wasted around half an hour of his time. But, seeing the look of enjoyment on her face, he had no choice but to let her do as she pleased. I have something to do tonight, so I'll head over directly. Lu Che will come pick you up, and we'll enter together at the entrance. Tangning was in the middle of helping Mo Ting button up. As she looked at Mo Ting's perfect body, her mind was once again reminded of the white chopped chicken. Although she didn't want her husband's body to be seen by others, it was only once. Using it to defeat the white chopped chicken in an instant wasn't too bad, right? Mo Ting lowered his head to look at Tangning's expression. Actually, even without Tangning saying it, he already knew what she was thinking. He was experienced in being slandered by the woman he loved. Every time, he had to endure it until he vomited blood. But, because he had endured it before, he didn't want Tangning to suffer because of him. Are you done? Tangning nodded her head as she stood on her tiptoes and bit Mo Ting on the shoulder out of habit. This was a little secret between the couple. So, regardless of whether Tangning was happy or not, she would still do this. As for Mo Ting, regardless of whether it was painful or not, he would not show it. He simply wrapped his arms around her and placed a kiss on the top of her head before putting on his coat and leaving the house in satisfaction. Tangning stood by the window as she watched Mo Ting's car drive away. She placed her hand on her rapidly beating heart. She didn't know what was going on. They had already been married for so long, but whenever she was with Mo Ting, her heart would still race like they had just gotten married. As she turned around, Tangning noticed the entertainment newspaper on the table. Thinking about Quan Yi's shameless words, she felt a little unhappy. Tonight, he was Mo Ting's opponent, while the people she needed to defeat were the twin models. Even though, from what she saw, there wasn't much suspense. Since the meeting this time was to resolve things peacefully, the media would definitely be present. But, according to her understanding of Mo Ting, things like resolving things should only be discussed after he had gotten his revenge. So, she was suddenly looking forward to their meeting tonight. But, when she thought about Mo Ting's second uncle, she felt a little nervous. That afternoon, Tangning was preparing at home when Long Jie arrived at Hyatt Regency with news from Hai Rui. Tangning, I heard someone from the gay industry has called Hai Rui to harass you. It's all because of that jerk from Star King. Since you already know he's a jerk, why don't you just give him a slap in the face? Why bother? After speaking, Tangning tried on a simple chipao. As soon as Long Jie saw it, she was stunned. Tangning, it's rare to see you wearing a chipao, it's so beautiful. Tangning looked at the clothes on her body and was still a little nervous. Is it too formal? Since you are meeting the elders, this is perfect. Long Jie nodded her head in approval. That's why I say, I will always lose to you in terms of intelligence. Because you really cater to what they like. The older generation have a strong sense of patriotism. If you dress like this, I wonder how many memories you will bring back. Isn't it too deliberate? You weren't even this nervous when you were at a luxury fashion show. Long Jie glared at her before giving her a reassuring look. You are perfect. This time, even Mo Ting did not expect his wife to wear a chipao. Even though he had always known his wife had a sharp mind, he did not expect her to wear a chipao. 7 p.m. The sky was dark, but snow was falling from the sky above Beijing. Inside the high-class clubhouse, the Quan family and second uncle had already arrived. However, Mo Ting did not arrive on time. He was almost 10 minutes late. Second Master Mo immediately explained to the Quan family, it's snowing. I heard there was a traffic jam on the road, so I arrived late. Father Quan laughed casually, this is a common occurrence. What's wrong with waiting a little longer? Today, Quan Yi did not bring his flirtatious model duo. However, his expression was obviously impatient. He knew Mo Ting had arrived late on purpose to make the Quan family wait. Apart from the two families, the entire hall was filled with reporters waiting to let them in. This was simply a show and Quan Yi was simply speaking the truth. Mo Ting was 32 years old, But he had never been with a woman. Who knew if he was actually interested in men? 7 p.m. Tongning wrapped herself in a black trench coat and arrived at the entrance of the high-class clubhouse under Lu Che's protection. Mo Ting had just arrived. As soon as he saw his beloved wife, he immediately grabbed her hand and placed it in the crook of his arm. Don't be nervous. In a moment. I will do my best to satisfy you. Chapter 274. Look, aren't they here? Father Quan smiled as he watched Mo Ting and Tongning enter the room. He then gestured for Quan Yi to stand up. Second Master Mo also spotted Mo Ting, but he did not place his gaze on him. After all, he had seen him for a few decades and there was nothing new about him. So, he placed his gaze on Tongning, who was with Mo Ting. At first glance, this young woman was a little cold, but she wasn't aloof. On the surface, she appeared quiet and her gaze wasn't overbearing. Instead, she made one feel comfortable looking at her. Originally, the entire family thought their nephew would be a bachelor for the rest of his life. Who would have thought he would one day be enlightened? But, would a child that came from the entertainment industry be pure? Quick, have a seat. Did you get stuck in traffic? Second Master Mo immediately asked. Originally, he thought that no matter what reason Mo Ting had for being late, he would give him the same answer: traffic was stuck. But Mo Ting first pulled out a chair for Tongning and gestured for her to sit down like a gentleman. Afterwards, he pulled out his own chair and replied, I wasn't stuck in traffic. Second Master Mo's expression changed. Meanwhile, Father Quan and Quan Yi's expressions didn't look any better. Tongning glanced at Second Master Mo and then back at Mo Ting. Finally, she noticed Mo Ting had a smile on his face. Only then did she realize what was going on, so she said, I'm really sorry, elders, I was stuck in a traffic jam. Mo Ting had to pick me up, that's why he was late. I'm really sorry for making you wait. As soon as Second Master Mo heard this, his expression softened as he looked at Tongning approvingly. At this time, Mo Ting held onto Tongning's hand under the table, rubbed it a few times and wrapped it in his warm palm. Tongning understood why Mo Ting did this. He wanted to give her a chance to perform and leave a good impression in front of the elders. It's not a big deal, Father Quan waved his hand. He then pointed to Tongning and said to Second Master Mo, I know this child. Recently, there's been a lot of news about her in Beijing. Father Quan's words sounded like he was praising Tongning's popularity and fame, but in reality, he was saying that this young woman wasn't simple at all. Hearing this, Second Master Mo tilted his head and asked Mo Ting, do you know what happened? Of course. That's good. Second Master Mo had complete trust in Mo Ting's judgment. Since he brought her to an event like this, it meant she was someone Mo Ting cared about. It wasn't easy for him to find a girlfriend, so he didn't want to scare her away again. So, Second Master Mo naturally spoke up for Tongning, young people should be full of energy. Of course, compared to Quan Yi, we are still a little lacking. In other words, Quan Yi had changed women 3 times a day. What right did he have to mock his niece's wife? In fact, the elders of the two families were just putting on an act. In the business world, knives and swords have no eyes. They had already hurt each other so many times. How could they really be good friends? As expected, Father Quan was left speechless by Second Master Mo. After quite some time, he finally returned to the topic at hand. This time, Quan Yi did not watch his mouth properly and caused trouble for Mo Ting. I feel a little bad. Old man Quan, are you going to let it go just because you're sorry? Mo Ting asked. If President Mo is really capable, he can prove it to the media. Is there a need to complain to my father? Quan Yi responded in the same way. His tone was frivolous and his attitude was arrogant. It was obvious he wasn't here to apologize. Of course, Mo Ting wasn't here to make him apologize. How dare you? Father Quan yelled as he turned to Quan Yi. Apart from playing with women, what else do you do? I don't understand. Does Star King need to be suppressed by Hai Rui? It seems President Quan is not convinced. Mo Ting raised an eyebrow at the father and son. Mo Ting raised an eyebrow at the father and son opposite him. At this time, Second Master Mo had no intention of interfering. He simply wanted to watch the show. Why don't you prove to me that you are a real man? Quan Yi narrowed his eyes as he looked at Second Master Mo lazily. In that case, let's compete, Mo Ting replied straightforwardly. Compete in what? Since the clubhouse has everything, let's compete one by one. You can choose any event you want. We will compete in 5 rounds. As long as you score 1 point in front of me, I will consider it your win. 1 point was considered a win. Not only was Quan Yi shocked, even Tongning was in disbelief after hearing this. Just 1 point was considered a win. How humiliating was this? Quan Yi's face turned red as he stood up from his chair. Since we are men, we should use our fists to do the talking. Let's compete in boxing for the first round. Remember what you said. Mo Ting smiled elegantly. Let me say this first, I need to let the media in, Second Master Mo said as he pointed to the reporters who were flashing their lights. Originally, Second Master Mo thought Mo Ting would object. But, this time, Mo Ting reacted differently and replied, whatever. Afterwards, he pulled Tongning up from her seat. Let's meet at the boxing arena in 10 minutes. Let's go get ready. Go get ready, do you need to bring? Second Master Mo turned his head and looked at the couple with a deeper meaning. Mo Ting's expression did not change as he raised his eyebrows. Yes. After speaking, he pulled Tongning towards the boxing hall, completely ignoring the reporters at the entrance. Second Master Mo turned around and sighed. He realized the usually emotionless nephew of his actually had such a side to him. What a surprise. Chapter 275. Boxing was a competitive sport, and it was also a form of aesthetics that contained violence. It required strong muscle strength, psychological warfare, and physical endurance combat. A proper boxing match required 5 rounds and each round lasted 2 minutes. If the opponent remained on the ground for 10 seconds, the winner would be considered. Mo Ting was not in the mood to waste a few rounds with Quan Yi. So, the two agreed to decide the winner in 1 round. Before Mo Ting stepped onto the stage, Quan Yi quickly put on a bandage and gloves. In order to prove that this was a high-standard match, professional boxers normally did not wear helmets and gloves. So, Quan Yi did not put on any on either. He simply wore shorts and a pair of soft-soled shoes as he entered the field of view of the crowd. Quan Yi's body wasn't bad, his limbs were well proportioned and his muscles were well defined. He was stronger than the average man. The only thing lacking about him was that his skin was as white as a woman's. That's why Mo Ting referred to him as a boiled chicken. But, even the boiled chicken that Mo Ting referred to was met with loud cheers and endless applause. Afterwards, Quan Yi stepped onto the stage to warm up. He seemed to enjoy the feeling of being praised by others, he enjoyed being in the limelight. Even if he wasn't the heir to Star King, he was destined to become a famous celebrity. That was the only way he could enjoy the attention that others couldn't. Elder Quan and Elder Mo were also seated in the audience. Elder Quan's first thought upon seeing his son was, it seemed, even though he was playing around with women, he did not neglect his body. Not bad. Meanwhile, Second Master Mo had a confused expression as he sat beside Father Quan with his arms crossed. He was deep in thought. The last time Mo Ting had punched someone was 10 years ago. Back then, he had given Quan Yi a concussion with a single punch. 10 years later, he had restrained his youthful arrogance, so he probably wouldn't use so much strength. Otherwise, if he injured Quan Yi, he wouldn't know how to compensate the Quan family. Why hasn't President Mo appeared yet? To be honest, President Quan's body is indeed good. Did you really think that he was simply a rich young master? Hearing the discussions of the reporters behind him, Elder Quan felt an inexplicable sense of relief. Although Star King had been under pressure from Hai Rui for many years, if his son could beat Mo Ting in terms of physique, he would at least win once and it would bring him some pride. You people, it sounds like you don't work out very much. That's why you think this body is good. Wait and see. But, I've never seen President Mo build a body before, I'm sorry, but every villa in Hyatt Regency has its own gym. Do you think they need to let you see them? Second Master Mo couldn't stand the noise around him, so he coughed lightly to signal the reporters to know their limits. Didn't they see that there were 2 elderly people in front of them? Following that, The surroundings fell silent. Right after that, two figures entered the boxing gym. Originally, they had their backs to the lights, so no one could see them clearly. But, as soon as they entered the boxing hall, the audience became excited. Some people even stood up uncontrollably. All of them looked at Mo Ting in disbelief, as if they were afraid that they would miss out on a single detail: strong and well-proportioned 8-pack abs, well-developed chest muscles like those of a Westerner, arms and fists that contained explosive power, and bronze-colored skin that exuded extreme male hormones. The reporters stared at Mo Ting's figure in a daze. They almost forgot about the cameraman. Oh my God! Wasn't this too perfect? So many men want a body like this. It's too shocking. Hurry and take a photo. Do you believe that President Kwan can't even withstand a single punch from President Mo? After seeing President Mo's body, I suddenly feel like President Kwan is a bit like a woman. Hearing the comments coming from all directions, Kwan Yi stood in the boxing ring and watched as Mo Ting walked closer and closer to him. He suddenly felt a burning sensation on his face. The votes online had all been given to him for his figure, and he accepted it as a matter of course. He had never expected Mo Ting's body to be this good. Wasn't Mo Ting a famous workaholic? With this comparison, he looked at himself. Kwan Yi suddenly had the urge to run away at the last minute. He believed, with the developed muscles on Mo Ting's arms, his explosive power would be extremely shocking. Tongning followed behind Mo Ting with Mo Ting's black trench coat hanging on her arm. Of course, she could already tell the outcome of the match from the reactions of the audience. Kwan Yi's mouth was too cheap. With his white-cut chicken body, he was only good enough for Mo Ting to practice on. Second Master Mo looked at Mo Ting with admiration. Who would have thought? 10 years had passed and Kwan Yi's body was still in such good shape. In fact, it was even better than before. However, Elder Kwan's face turned from red to white. He was starting to worry if Kwan Yi would be able to stand up after Mo Ting's punch. Quick, take a few more photos. There aren't many men in Beijing with such a good body. Hurry up and take more photos. Haha, just thinking about it makes me happy. This time, those that voted for President Kwan are going to have their faces slapped swollen. How could such a manly man be gay? Don't joke with me. Harais, I really want to be as happy as Tongning, helping President Mo with his clothes. Speaking of which, what's going on? Did they exchange manager roles? In the audience, everyone was in high spirits, especially after Mo Ting walked into the boxing ring. Kwan Yi took a few steps back. His eyes were filled with caution, but he refused to admit defeat. Mo Ting looked at Kwan Yi and wrapped a bandage around his wound. If you want to admit defeat, it's not too late. Let me warn you first, 10 years ago, someone took a punch from me and is still in the hospital. If Mo Ting had said this with his clothes on, Kwan Yi would definitely have laughed. But Mo Ting was standing naked in front of him. His entire body was filled with hormones and a sense of violence. Kwan Yi did not dare to underestimate Mo Ting. Kwan Yi looked at his opponent and then back at himself. In the end, before the fight even started, he admitted defeat in his heart. I give up. There were still a few more rounds to go. He refused to believe that Mo Ting would have the upper hand in all of them, especially when it came to eating, drinking and playing. Was there anyone that could beat him? As soon as Mo Ting heard the word I give up, he suddenly pointed to Tongning and said, you might not even be able to beat her. If I go up, I would be bullying you. In the next round, I will try my best to let you win. Kwan Yi looked at Tongning and scoffed, President Mo can't possibly win all the time. Let's give it a try then. Kwan Yi turned around and jumped off the boxing ring. By the time he returned to Father Kwan's side, he felt a little embarrassed. But, at least it was better than being humiliated and getting beaten. I never expected the rascal to be so good at hiding his strength. What do you want to compete in the next round? Show us what you're good at. A good student like him should never go overboard, Father Kwan said. Chapter 276. Father Kwan regarded Mo Ting as an obedient student. This was simply because his son was a typical playboy. Kwan Yi enjoyed the attention that the entertainment industry brought him and the countless women around him. But he was not suited to be a person in power. Because, apart from arrogance and self-righteousness, he had nothing else. Second Master Mo suddenly felt Mo Ting was a little cruel. It seemed, as the favored son of the heavens, Quan Yi had been treated like a treasure from a young age. No one had ever dared to go against him. Unfortunately, there was still a Mo Ting in this world. The media immediately posted all the photos they had taken online. The legendary reconciliation dinner, in the end, ended with a battle. Of course, this wasn't the focus of the netizens' attention. Everyone was captivated by Mo Ting's body. That's right, his body. All they heard was a slap to the face. With Mo Ting's heaven-defying body, he couldn't be compared to a white-cut chicken. Wipe off the blood from my nose. My HP bar is empty. Oh God, with this body, I can beat Quan Yi by 10 streets. The commenter above, calm down. After an evaluation, after browsing through male model websites, I couldn't find a better body, unless it was an athlete. Oh God, who was the one that said President Mo didn't have a body? I'm so angry. I'm on the wrong side. With a body like this, according to an evaluation by an expert, the chances of him being gay are practically zero. His hormones are too strong and he's too charming. The internet was in an uproar. Those that originally supported Quan Yi had now switched their allegiance to Mo Ting. Not only that, Mo Ting's sexy figure was finally revealed. He was now seen as a fitness role model by many men and women, and a goal for them to aim for. Of course, this was also the first time Long Jie had seen Mo Ting's body. Although apart from Tang Ning and Lu Che, she was the person that interacted with Mo Ting the most, before she saw the photo, she would never have imagined that Mo Ting's body was this good. Oh God, I'm going to have a nosebleed. After putting down her phone, Long Jie glanced at Lu Che and couldn't help but think back to Lu Che's body. Don't worry, although I can't compare to the president, I'm still better than a white-cut chicken. Long Jie let out a gentle laugh as she put down her phone in satisfaction. Let's see what kind of nasty words the people that still supported Quan Yi can say. Afterwards, Long Jie picked up her phone and looked down at the quiet Tang Ning waiting for Mo Ting below the stage. Long Jie couldn't help but poke the woman on the screen. Look at our Tang Ning's bitter life. She struggled all the way to where she is today, only to have someone step all over her big boss. Luckily, the couple have always been united. You and I are not of the same mind. Long Jie glared at him proudly. That's different. But I am sure that it was you who had a crush on me first. Long Jie, I regret it now, especially after seeing boss's body. Lu Che, if you continue like this, you will lose your boyfriend. Long Jie smiled as she snuggled into Lu Che's embrace. No, to be exact, she dominated his embrace. At this moment, the venue of the high-class clubhouse had changed. Everyone felt it was a shame that they didn't get to see Mo Ting's fists in action. How domineering would it be? Tang Ning accompanied Mo Ting as he changed back into his suit. She then placed a jacket on his body. I really regret it. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have exposed your body. Right now, there are hungry wolves everywhere. What do you think we should do? But, aren't you the only one that has gotten to taste the meat? Mo Ting lowered his hand and held onto Tang Ning's slender fingers. If you think a place like this is boring, you can tell me. I will directly KO them. No, I'm actually quite curious about what the next round will be, Tang Ning said as she held onto Mo Ting's hand and led him out of the changing room. Of course, tonight, she simply wanted to be Mo Ting's foil. So, even though the media managed to capture a few photos of Tang Ning, they were either her holding onto Mo Ting's jacket as she stood below the stage, or she was quietly standing by Mo Ting's side. The couple did not do anything intimate, but the way they entered and exited together made the reporters at the scene eat a mouthful of dog food. After getting changed, the couple returned to the main hall. This time, the media were temporarily isolated from the public. Mo Ting's previous round was too powerful. Without the flashes of cameras, Tang Ning finally relaxed. It wasn't because she was afraid, but because she felt like she could no longer control the admiration she had for Mo Ting. She was afraid the media would capture it and she was afraid it would be exposed in front of him. Of course, the more she understood Mo Ting, the more she couldn't control her feelings for him. She liked him so much that she couldn't control herself, so much that she couldn't be saved. What are we competing in this time? Second Master Mo asked the father and son sitting opposite the fountain. Quan Yi unrestrainedly swung his legs on the table and raised his eyebrows. Why don't we play cards? Since the media have already left, there is no need for us to compete in 5 rounds. Let's just play some random cards. Let's play Texas. However, I want to place a bigger bet this time. What are you betting on? Mo Ting asked calmly with a calm expression. Quan Yi glanced at Mo Ting before straightening up and looking at Tang Ning. He then pointed his finger at Tang Ning and said, I bet on her. If you lose, this model will belong to me. Even Father Quan could tell that Quan Yi was purposely causing trouble. Let alone the Mo family's uncle and nephew. You can also make a request. Mo Ting lowered his head and thought for a moment before smiling. She's not a bet. Isn't she just a model? If I lose, I can still sleep with your twins. Mo Ting's expression darkened. Father Quan immediately noticed, so he grabbed onto Quan Yi's arm and said, Rascal, are you asking for a lesson? Look at President Mo's expression. What? Are you afraid? The more Quan Yi was scolded, the more he wanted to win. Just as Mo Ting was thinking about how to teach this arrogant jerk a lesson, Tang Ning suddenly said, I'll bet with you. But, if you lose, you will go on all the big platforms and say that I'm a jerk and that I can't do it. Father Quan's face turned red. Just as he was about to say something, Quan Yi stood up excitedly. Okay. That's settled then. However, I don't bully women. You and President Mo can come at me together. You guys are considered family. Mo Ting looked at Tang Ning without saying a word. Since Quan Yi thought he didn't know how to do it and was so confident, he might as well go along with him. Most importantly, he could play Texas with Tang Ning in his arms. Second Master Mo sighed to himself once again. He felt that the Quan father and son did not bring their eyes with them when they left home. If they had chosen someone else from the Mo family, they might have had a chance of winning. But, challenging Mo Ting? He really wanted to find a place to sleep. A competition like this with no suspense was only meant for Mo Ting to date and coax his little wife. Chapter 277. After the father and son left, Mo Ting turned around and looked at Tang Ning. He asked dotingly and helplessly, You agreed so quickly. Aren't you afraid you'll lose? I know how to play Texas, Tang Ning replied. With me around, you don't need to do anything. Eating, drinking, and having fun are the strengths of a spoiled brat. Are you sure you can win? You definitely won't let me lose. Tang Ning lowered her head and took a deep breath. Tang Ning lowered her head and took a deep breath. Don't ask why I fought, that's all in the past. But, tonight, I want to fight for you, okay? After speaking, Tang Ning grabbed onto Mo Ting's sleeve. Mo Ting tilted his head and looked at her slender right hand. He suddenly laughed. Can I say no? But, if I lose, then, I can only accept it on behalf of your wife and lose to Quan Yi on your behalf. Tang Ning couldn't help but laugh. Just trust me this once. Mo Ting had never doubted Tang Ning. She had never been the type of woman to hide behind a man. Above all, he remembered what Tang Ning had said to him previously. Apart from living habits, their interests and hobbies were still a blank slate. He could accurately tell Tang Ning's shoe size, her 3 measurements, her favorite food and even the color of her clothes. But, as for everything else, he was looking forward to finding out more. In the end, Mo Ting replied, I can only trust you because I'm not good at Texas. I don't believe you. Mo Ting's lips curved upwards as he revealed a charming smile. He then led Tang Ning into the clubhouse. At the gambling table, Quan Yi was already in position. After all, gambling was something he was good at, so he couldn't help but be excited. That's right, he came here with the intention to bully Mo Ting. He thought he was the king at the table. He couldn't beat Mo Ting in a fight, but he could definitely beat him in a game. Afterwards, Tang Ning sat down on a chair. However, Mo Ting quickly pulled her up. Tang Ning was confused. Mo Ting first sat down on a chair and then moved her between his legs. This position. Although this was a common occurrence at home, Tang Ning still felt a little uncomfortable in a situation like this. Mo Ting wrapped his arms around Tang Ning and reminded her, it's about to start. Why are you being so affectionate when playing cards? Are you afraid that you won't be able to hug me if you lose? I'll say this first, we'll decide the winner in one round, Kuan Yi sneered before instructing the dealer to start handing out the cards. Anyone who knew how to play Texas knew that a player had 2 trump cards and 5 public cards. In the end, they had to choose 5 cards to combine and compete against the opponent. A straight flush was naturally the biggest, followed by 4 heavenly legs, followed by a full house, and so on. Of course, Kuan Yi had seen his fair share of women playing cards, but he had never seen a woman win. This little model seemed to have an exaggerated opinion of her abilities. Afterwards, the dealer began to distribute the cards. Out of the 2 cards, Tongning had an ace of spades and a jack of hearts. In Kuan Yi's hand was a pair of tens. Of course, his trump cards weren't good, but they weren't bad either. Since the stakes were people, it didn't matter if he agreed or not. Kuan Yi directly asked the dealer to give out 3 public cards. This time, the commons had a king of spades, a 3 of diamonds, and a 10 of hearts. From the looks of it, Tongning had a high chance of getting a straight, while Kuan Yi already had 3. Of course, on the table of cards, apart from luck, there were many other factors. For example, psychological tactics. Kuan Yi had always been known for his luck on the table of cards. So, what about against Tongning this time? Although Mo Ting was carrying Tongning, he did not say a word to her from start to finish. He simply watched quietly. Tongning was indeed familiar with Texas, so he thought of another possibility. Tongning must have played with Han Yufan in the past. Thinking of this, he felt a little jealous. But, thinking about how Tongning said she was going to fight for him, he let go of his jealousy. Not long after, the 4th public card was dealt. This time, it was another ace of hearts. Kuan Yi maintained his advantage, but overall, Tongning was slightly behind. She only had a pair of aces, and if the last card didn't have a queen, she would lose. This time, Kuan Yi did not continue. He simply held his chin and asked Tongning, "What do you think? Do you want to fold? Let me warn you, it's almost time for the last card." Mo Ting wrapped his arm around Tongning's neck and whispered in her ear, "Let me see the last card. In that case, if I win, is it your luck or mine?" "Yours," Mo Ting replied. Tongning nodded her head. She couldn't be bothered to listen to Kuan Yi's nonsense as she asked the dealer to deal the cards. In the end, the 5th public card was dealt. However, it didn't have much of an effect on either side. Tongning suddenly felt a little nervous. It was almost time to reveal her trump card. From the looks of it, she had a high chance of winning, but, without any suspense, Kuan Yi revealed his trump card. It was 3 tens. Tongning turned her head and glanced at Mo Ting, but Mo Ting gestured for her to stay put. "Reveal your card. I'm going to trust my luck today." Tongning only had a pair of aces, so she was obviously going to lose. But, she did not say a word. "Since you've lost, you should admit it. President Mo, you can afford to play, right?" Seeing the 2 men's reactions, Kuan Yi was certain that they had lost. So, he couldn't help but clap for himself. "It seems, I'll be able to enjoy being a little model tonight. What a shame." Mo Ting squeezed out 3 words from his chest before he revealed his trump card. It was actually Q and J. No one knew better than Tongning what her trump card was. At the same time, she also understood why the aces turned into QS. A straight is bigger than 3. "We win." Kuan Yi looked at the straight in front of the 2 men in disbelief. His expression did not look too good. In the end, he fell back into his chair and slammed his fist on the table. "President Kuan, I hope you remember your promise. Remember to say that I'm a jerk and that I can't win." Chimampate. Kuan Yi lifted his chair and left the clubhouse with Father Kuan. Afterwards, he heard the dealer say to Mo Ting, "This CEO Kuan is an old hand at cheating." "I know," Mo Ting replied. "What about you?" Tongning turned around and glared at Mo Ting. President Mo simply wanted to teach the jerk a lesson. If President Mo really wanted to win, he could have used any card he wanted. "Do you guys know each other?" Tongning asked as she pointed to the dealer. "When I first took over Hai Rui, I was always met with all sorts of business partners. Previously, I was cheated of a lot of money, so I decided to learn. I don't really use it, I only use it to protect myself, Mo Ting explained. I bet you've never known what it means to be controlled by someone else. I even said I would fight for you, but... Tongning sighed. If Mo Ting's logic was to learn everything he didn't know, then how many skills did he have? Even if you didn't cheat, your cards are better than Quan Yi's, so you win. Chapter 278. All of a sudden, Tongning had a feeling that she had yet to truly witness Mo Ting's power. Mo Ting noticed she was deep in thought and was about to say something, but at this time, Second Master Mo entered the lounge and said sleepily, "You won pretty quickly." Mo Ting turned around and looked at Second Master Mo before leading Tongning over to him. "This is Second Uncle. I didn't introduce him properly just now." Before Tongning could say anything, Second Master Mo pulled Mo Ting to one side and asked, "Are you serious? You only found a small-time model? Have you spoken to your parents first?" Mo Ting turned around and looked at Tongning as he replied, "What, does Second Uncle think it's not a good idea? Of course it's good. This girl looks decent and I quite like her. But, what about your parents? When do you plan to tell them? Please keep it a secret, Second Uncle." "It's not the right time yet," Mo Ting replied with a deeper meaning. "You are just like your father, always trying to be mysterious." "I don't care about the two of you," Second Master Mo waved his hand disapprovingly. Second Master Mo waved his hands disapprovingly. "It's just a pity that the banquet was supposed to be a reconciliation. In the end, the enmity between us got worse. You should have shown some mercy. After this mess, will I still be able to see Old Man Quan? Doesn't Second Uncle enjoy this process? It's good that you know. If I say it out loud, then it's pointless." After speaking, Second Master Mo turned around and looked at Tongning. "Why don't you have dinner with your niece-in-law before you leave? I just want to ask, how many people have found out about this? Grandfather knows I'm married, but he doesn't know who my partner is." "Married?" Second Master Mo covered his mouth. "I thought you guys were just getting along." Mo Ting raised his left hand with a wedding ring on it and let out a gentle laugh. "It's already been 4 months. In that case, this dinner is even more important." Mo Ting nodded his head and returned to Tongning's side. "Second Uncle wants to have dinner with us. Do you want to go? Do you even need to ask? Let's go." After the three left the clubhouse, they arrived at a quiet hotel nearby. From start to finish, Second Master Mo watched Mo Ting protect his wife and found it a little funny. "Good lad, you are becoming more and more like your second uncle when I was young. When you marry a wife, you need to dote on her." "I never dared to forget," Mo Ting replied. "You're already 32 years old. When I was 32 years old, my second brother was already old enough to buy soy sauce. When do you plan to have one?" "There's no rush," Mo Ting replied. Tongning watched as the uncle and nephew interacted with each other. She wasn't sure if it was because of their genes, but she felt Second Master Mo was especially close to him. She felt the Mo family were extremely cute. Seeing Mo Ting's work was not going well, Second Master Mo turned to Tongning and said, "Niece's wife, don't let this rascal control you too much. Don't listen to everything he says. This guy has always been good at conning people since he was young. At home, my wife has always been the one who calls the shots." Mo Ting placed his arm on Tongning's chair and raised his eyebrows. "It better be." Tongning felt a little warm, so she removed her jacket and revealed the embroidered chipao she was wearing. This time, Mo Ting and Second Master Mo were both stunned. Mo Ting even leaned in and asked gently, "Why are you wearing something so sexy? Who are you wearing it for?" Second Master Mo cleared his throat and laughed. "Xiao Ning sure knows how to please the elders. But, it's very useful. When I see you dressed like this, I'm reminded of your auntie's beauty. No matter what, I wish the two of you the best. It seems, I don't need to worry about you getting along with the Mo family," Mo Ting whispered beside Tongning's ear after dinner. But, a child. In the past, she had never considered this issue because she thought they had only been married for a short period of time. But, now that Second Master Mo mentioned it, it turned out Mo Ting was already 32 years old. 32 years old, it was indeed time for him to have a child. But, if she were to have a child at this time, then she would need to start her newly established career all over again. If you want to have a child, then we can talk about it. I'm not in a rush. But am I so old that I have to have a child? In the entertainment industry, there are plenty of people that only have children when they are 40. On the way home, Tongning couldn't help but lower her head in thought. Was she against having a child? Actually, she wasn't. In the past, she was determined to return to the top of the modeling industry because she wanted to get revenge on Han Yufan and Mo Euro. Afterwards, she changed her mind because she wanted to be a match for Mo Ting. Now, to her, a woman needed to have her own independent career. But she also wanted a baby like Mo Ting. By the time you are 40, I will be 33, Tongning reminded Mo Ting. In that case, let's start a little earlier. Older mothers are in danger. You know about this. Mo Ting continued driving. Under the flashing neon lights, he turned his head to look at Tongning and replied, "After marrying you, I began to understand everything. Married life is also a part of my education. I really regret not meeting you earlier. If you had met me earlier, I'm sure we would have been on and off again. Wifey, I was also young once and I had a bad temper and liked to fight. Okay, I'd like to see it for myself." Early the next morning, Quan Yi posted on his personal blog about his punishment for losing the bet. He admitted that he was a jerk and that he couldn't do it. Most of the media knew that Quan Yi had been beaten by Mo Ting. Chapter 279. If you have the ability, show us some evidence. The man couldn't help but post a photo. It was the photo of Tongning and Mo Ting kissing in the manor. In the photo, Tongning's face wasn't in high definition, but her facial features were still recognizable. As for the man, his back was against the wall and he was in the middle of a car, so it was impossible to see who he was. Most importantly, in this photo, Tongning was indeed kissing a man. Let's wait and see. There are more explosive things to come. Expose it, hurry up and expose it. Oh God, is this really Tongning? Are there any experts who can dig out any useful information? Hurry and save it, don't let Hai Rui's PR get rid of it. However, the man did not respond. He simply left behind a suspicious photo before disappearing. Originally, this incident was only known by a small group of people. But it didn't take long before news of it spread to fans. Afterwards, it slowly climbed to the top of the search rankings. Tongning, hurry and take a look at this. What is this? As soon as Long Jie saw the photo, she immediately sat down on the sofa and approached Tongning. When did this happen? Were you and President Mo in the photo? Tongning tilted her head and glanced at the photo before replying with certainty, earlier when we were at the manor. The angle of the photo must be a bit difficult. Long Jie looked left and right. President Mo's manor is extremely secretive. It's impossible for anyone to get in. So, where did this photo come from? Were you being followed by the paparazzi? Tongning shook her head, I'm not sure. That must be the case. The culprit has been hiding it for so long. Does he have a plan? Why did he wait until now to make a move? Hearing this, Tongning shook her head again, I'm not sure either. What do you plan to do then? Fang Yu will naturally handle things like this. Don't worry about it. Help me pack my luggage, we need to go to France again. Tongning didn't care about photos like this. After all, the person in the photo was Mo Ting and not anyone else. If someone tried to slander her because of this, it was only a matter of time before they cleared their name. But after a short pause, Tongning lifted her head and said to Long Jie, use your little channels to find out where this information came from. I know. It seems, the people on the outside haven't done enough. Or perhaps, they haven't been taught a lesson by President Mo yet. If we pay too much attention to this matter, then the other party will win. Why waste time? 10 o'clock in the morning, Imperial Star CEO's office. Quan Yi pretended to be serious as he sat at his desk reading through some documents. The pen in his hand simply scribbled a few lines across the document before quickly closing it up. He looked at Star King's artist's information in boredom. If he had known he would have to pay such a price for losing to Mo Ting, he wouldn't have challenged him. CEO Quan, come in, Quan Yi said to his assistant impatiently. The assistant walked over to Kuan Yi with the phone in his hand and handed it to him as if he was presenting a treasure. President Kuan, this is for you to be happy. What are you happy about? Kuan Yi received the phone from Tongning. A moment later, he saw the photo of Tongning kissing the man. What does this mean? Right now, there are rumors going around that Tongning's private life is messy, that she has cheated on a few men and made President Mo of Hai Rui wear a green hat. Although there were rumors that Tongning had climbed into his bed, there was no solid evidence. Now, it has finally been posted, the assistant explained excitedly. If the rumors are true and Mo Ting is still in an ambiguous relationship with her, President Kuan, think about it. Wouldn't the anger in your heart be vented? What? Translator's thoughts. Kuan Yi did not say a word. He simply stared at the phone in a daze. Did you think this would make me happy? The assistant was stunned as his face turned red. I said there was something wrong with Mo Ting's sexual orientation. I was the one that caused trouble for Mo Ting. But, what does this mean? Kuan Yi threw the phone away. What kind of solid evidence is this? But, the rumors are spreading like wildfire. It's normal for people to slander Tongning. Kuan Yi threw the phone away and suddenly laughed. According to Mo Ting's abilities, he will definitely resolve the matter quickly. This time, I am going to make things a little more difficult for him. What does President Kuan want to do? Pay attention to Tongning's recent schedule. I want to create a chance encounter with her. Kuan Yi began to get excited. Since Tongning had already been accused of having a messy life, why not he add a little spice to her life? He really wanted to see Mo Ting's expression. It was going to be interesting. President Kuan, do you want everyone to misunderstand that the person in the photo is you? You're smart. How many years has President Mo been dominating Hai Rui? I wonder if he can handle this blow. After speaking, Kuan Yi suddenly felt the documents in front of him weren't as annoying as before. At the same time, the models that relied on their talent to make a living didn't seem so ugly anymore. But, it's not easy to get hold of Tongning's schedule. Go out and think of a way. Contact customs and take note of Tongning's name. As soon as she decides to leave the country, let me know immediately. The assistant knew Kuan Yi's decision couldn't be changed. So, even though he looked like he was in a difficult position, he did not refute. He simply bowed to Kuan Yi and left the office. He was the one that brought this upon himself. Even though he never expected Kuan Yi to use this incident to attack Mo Ting, he simply wanted Kuan Yi to be a little happier and help his subordinates progress a little more smoothly. Plus, it wasn't that Kuan Yi wasn't capable. He simply preferred the freedom of the world and didn't like the power that every man couldn't live without. Worst of all, he wanted to bring this playful attitude to the agency. After all, Star King still had the old man, so he could continue playing around. By the time Mo Ting found out about this incident, he had just finished a video conference. Fang Yu brought the information to Mo Ting's office. Not only did he pull out the photo and news, he also pulled out the IP address of the person that posted the photo as well as a list of suspects. Mo Ting's eyes darkened as he put down the information. He then placed his fingers on the table and said to Fang Yu, "Follow up on these suspects and investigate them. Find out how they managed to get their hands on the photo. I've already instructed my subordinates to investigate. By the time we receive the results, you and Tongning will already be in France," Fang Yu explained. "Let's find out who the culprit is first." Mo Ting picked up the photo again as he thought back to the kiss he shared with Tongning that day because he had to return home early. Who would have thought, the paparazzi was so brave. Focus on investigating Hua Rong Studio. Mo Ting hadn't forgotten that Tongning had told him more than once about being seen by editor Lin. "I've never heard of this studio before." Fang Yu tried to recall. Chapter 280. Editor Lin had always wanted to use Tongning's incident to shoot to fame. So, he had been patiently waiting for the right moment. But, he never expected his staff would be so impatient as to directly upload a photo of Tongning's manner onto the internet. Inside the hidden office, editor Lin glared at his employee who was kneeling on the floor. He wanted to chew him to pieces. "Consider it my bad luck to have encountered a piece of trash like you. Let me tell you, if it weren't for the fact that you're my cousin, I would have cut off one of your hands. The man held his head in his hands as his body trembled in fear. Hai Rui was currently looking for him everywhere. Hurry and pack your things. How long did you think it would take for Hai Rui to find you? Let me tell you, if Hai Rui finds you, you won't have a good ending. So, you better stick close to me. The man had acted on impulse. Now that he knew the consequences, he crawled out of his chair and headed to his office to pack his things. Meanwhile, Editor Lin decided to abandon this secret base. Otherwise, if Mo Ting found him, would he still be alive? Fang Yu had never heard of a studio called Hua Rong before. In fact, they weren't even mentioned by many media outlets. Yet, Mo Ting was the focus of their attention. Obviously, in Mo Ting's heart, Hua Rong definitely had something to do with this incident. If this was the case, then how could such a small studio casually take out a photo of Tongning kissing a man? It was obvious, this studio had been following Tongning for a long time. Meanwhile, when the photo of Tongning kissing a man was exposed, Hua Jingjing also got into trouble. Previously, the top domestic lingerie brand, IY, was holding a new product launch in Beijing and had invited Hua Jingjing to appear as the finale. According to the contract, Hua Jingjing was only supposed to wear the finale. But, during the actual rehearsal, they demanded Hua Jingjing to change into 3 sets of lingerie in a row and pose according to the manager. Hua Jingjing used the contract as an excuse to reject them, but she was held back by the manager, who dragged her to the end of the rehearsal in front of everyone. According to Hua Jingjing's status, it was impossible for her to receive such treatment. But the manager had a background in the underworld. Even if it was Hai Rui, they didn't care. Not long after, Hua Jingjing was slandered again. The informant directly called her a broken shoe and accused her of being a model, but not doing what a model should do. When Fang Yu received the phone call, Hua Jingjing was still being oppressed by the other party. It was her assistant who had secretly made the call. Fang Yu's face was ashen as he told Mo Ting about the incident. Ever since Quan Yi returned, we've had more troubles. Of course, this was the result of all the information he had gathered through various methods. Quan Yi and IY's boss had long been friends overseas. So, he wasn't worried about Hai Rui, he was worried about Hua Jingjing. Mo Ting stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and looked outside. He then turned around and gave Father Quan a phone call. Elder Quan. Oh, it's Mo Ting, what's the matter? Mo Ting remained silent for 2 seconds before letting out a gentle laugh. If Quan Yi crosses my bottom line again, I will have no choice but to cripple him. I wonder what Quan Yi did to upset President Mo this time? Do I look like I'm joking? Mo Ting's voice suddenly turned cold and hard, sending chills down one's spine. Hearing Mo Ting's tone, Elder Quan knew he couldn't brush this matter off. So, in the end, he nodded his head in seriousness. I will keep an eye on Quan Yi. However, Father Quan was a little angry that he was being threatened by a younger generation. But he had no choice. Although he often crossed the line in front of Hai Rui, he still didn't dare to challenge them. President, is there any point in warning Star King like this? I have no intention of warning Star King. I simply wanted to give them a heads up before I touch Quan Yi. After speaking, Mo Ting returned to his desk. This afternoon, Tongning and I will fly to France. We need to deal with the matter regarding the photos. Don't worry, the photos have only been spread on a small scale. In a couple of days, they will be forgotten by everyone. Plus, I will find the source as soon as possible, Fang Yu promised as he placed his right hand in his pocket. But, have you decided to announce your relationship with Tongning yet? I promised Tongning that I would only announce it after 6 months of marriage. Unless I have no other choice, I want to keep my promise to her, Mo Ting said as he locked the important documents in his cabinet and pulled out his car keys. But, if someone wants to play a game, then I will be happy to play along. So, what's the harm in announcing our relationship? Plus, if IY insists that they are from the underworld, then we will use a method that they approve of to resolve the issue. I understand. News of Hai Rui looking for Hua Rong Studio spread like wildfire within the industry. While Fang Yu was on his way to IY, he received a phone call from his assistant saying that he had found the address of Hua Rong Studio. Fang Yu turned around and immediately rushed over to the building. But, by the time he arrived, the studio was already empty. All that was left was a rubbish bin with Hua Rong Studios logo printed on it. I was simply looking for the person in charge to have a chat. Do they really think we are from the underworld? Why would they run? The assistant complained. Of course they would run if they have a guilty conscience. Fang Yu looked around the studio in detail and checked every possible hiding spot. He even checked the windowsill. What the hell? If they aren't colluding with someone, then they must have other evidence that they have against Tongning. I'm afraid Hai Rui will find them, Fang Yu guessed. Just as he was about to head towards the bathroom, he received a phone call from Hua Jingjing's assistant. IY had gone too far and needed him to immediately deal with it. You guys continue searching. Try to gather as much evidence and information as you can. After speaking, Fang Yu left the building and rushed over to Hua Jingjing's set. After becoming famous and with Hai Rui's backing, it had been a long time since Hua Jingjing had met such an unreasonable business partner. They completely disobeyed the contract and weren't afraid of Hai Rui's backing. They forced her to wear 3 sets of underwear and insisted on her posing. Her manager was already crying in anger off stage while her assistant kept calling Fang Yu. This type of forceful business partner was shameless and scary. Jingjing. As it was a rehearsal, the set was filled with staff. Hua Jingjing had only brought her manager and assistant with her. The other party's request was that if they didn't follow their instructions, she wouldn't be able to leave. Hua Jingjing was afraid they would make a move, so all she could do was hold back her anger and obey. It wasn't like she hadn't endured this kind of humiliation before. Hua Jingjing, your pose isn't right. Try again. The show director instructed. Hua Jingjing froze on stage. At this time, Fang Yu entered the set with his bodyguards. A row of 7 to 8 people lined up in a row. Chapter 281. Seeing Fang Yu, Hua Jingjing felt a little embarrassed. After all, her current appearance was barely covered in clothes. Fang Yu looked at Hua Jingjing's flushed face and immediately removed his jacket. He then walked onto the runway and draped it over Hua Jingjing's body. However, just as he was about to take her away, the show director suddenly asked Fang Yu, "Who are you?" Hai Rui's artist's director, Fang Yu. Fang Yu replied coldly. The man choked for a moment as his previous questioning attitude disappeared. You can't take her away. She is still working. Do you want to breach the contract? Contract. With the mention of the contract, Fang Yu immediately turned to Hua Jingjing's manager and said, "Hand it over." The manager wiped away her tears and immediately handed the contract to Fang Yu. Fang Yu casually flipped it open and looked at the contract written on it. He then used the pen in his pocket to make a mark and held it up for the show director to see. Are you blind? The show director scoffed. Seeing the man still refused to admit, Fang Yu turned to the bodyguards and said, "Hold him down." What are you trying to do? The show director's expression immediately changed. The bodyguards obeyed as they immediately walked over and grabbed the chubby show director. They then held him in front of Fang Yu. Didn't you not see clearly? I'll let you see as much as you want. I'm going to sue you. What you're doing is illegal, the show director yelled in shock. Seeing this, Fang Yu gestured to the bodyguards. With a loud bang, the show director was punched in the stomach. Fang Yu then continued to ask, "Did you see it clearly?" It seems, you haven't seen it clearly enough. As Fang Yu was used to being smooth and slick, his gaze was only particularly sharp during PR conferences. But at this moment, his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. The show director was beaten to the ground. Afterwards, Fang Yu threw the contract at the show director's face. Do you believe this? Hai Rui can make IY's shares fall to rock bottom in one night. Originally, we were supposed to mind our own business. Since the boss of IY doesn't know how to appreciate kindness and colludes with Star King, then he will have to bear the consequences of offending Hai Rui. According to the rules of the underworld, you offended us first, so we will seek revenge later. This is reasonable. After speaking, Fang Yu wrapped his arm around Hua Jingjing's shoulder and stepped over the back of the show director's hand. Hua Jingjing subconsciously turned her head and glanced at Fang Yu's right arm that was wrapped around her. She suddenly felt, perhaps, the suffering she had suffered this time wasn't for nothing. After leaving the venue, Fang Yu stuffed Hua Jingjing into his car. He then grabbed a blanket from the back seat and placed it on her lap. I've been wronged. I never expected the people from IY to be so shameless. More importantly, I never expected them to disregard Hai Rui. Fang Yu tilted his head and glanced at Hua Jingjing. He then started up the car and prepared to drive her home. Before IY started selling top-quality lingerie, they were originally in the service industry. Later on, they successfully transformed their business and became the IY that they are today. Although their background has been cleaned up, these factors still exist. Previously, when you accepted this job, I reminded you to think twice. As for looking down on Hai Rui, I suspect that IY is going back to their old ways and treating the business world like the underworld. What are you going to do if you offend them like this? Hua Jingjing asked worriedly. How many people in the entertainment industry are clean? Aren't they all about money and background? Things like this will naturally be handled by President Mo. You don't have to worry about it. Has the matter regarding Tungning's photo been dealt with? It's being dealt with, Fang Yu replied succinctly. He then pointed to their destination with his chin. I never expected it to be so close to your home. Let's go up. Hua Jingjing looked around at her surroundings. She originally wanted to take off her clothes and return them to Fang Yu, but Fang Yu held onto her right hand. Do you want to go up like this? Hua Jingjing was only wearing white underwear. Plus, it was winter. If she were to go up like this, she would definitely go crazy and end up in the headlines again. Why don't you give me your keys and I'll go up and get you a set of clothes? Hua Jingjing hesitated for quite some time before replying, I think I should go stay at my manager's place. I'm a little scared. She was afraid of IY's revenge. If IY really wants to get revenge, do you think hiding at your manager's place will help? In that case, take me to the hotel. Fang Yu looked at her deeply and said, since it's only one night, let's go to my place. What do you mean by only one night? You don't need to know. After speaking, Fang Yu restarted the car and headed home. My daughter is a good girl. If you want, you can play with her. If you don't like kids, you can sleep in the guest room. Hua Jingjing sneaked a glance at Fang Yu. It was just a glance. Ever since their last conversation, she hadn't had the time to think about her feelings. It wasn't until a moment ago, when Fang Yu draped a jacket over her body and slapped IY in the face, did she realize that Fang Yu had unknowingly helped her so many times. Hua Jingjing didn't know how she arrived at Fang Yu's apartment. All she knew was, as soon as she entered, she saw Fang Yu's daughter doing her homework with the help of a maid. Baby, come here. Fang Yu waved at Fang Yu. The little rascal immediately ran into Fang Yu's arms and rubbed herself against him. Call me Auntie Hua. Call her sister. Hua Jingjing immediately corrected. Fang Yu scratched her head and asked Fang Yu in a cute voice, Daddy, I think she looks more like a sister. That's up to you. Fang Yu patted Fang Yu on the head and led Hua Jingjing to the guest room. He then handed her a set of home clothes. I still need to return to the office. You can stay here until tomorrow. Are you and President Mo going to resolve the matter with IY? Hua Jingjing received the home clothes from Fang Yu. After Fang Yu left, she cautiously returned to the living room and leaned against the corridor. No matter how she thought about it, she still felt she and Fang Yu were too far apart. Not only in terms of status, but there was also a little thing stuck between them. In the end, Hua Jingjing gave her assistant a phone call, come pick me up. I am at Fang Yu's home. I will be staying at the hotel tonight. As soon as Fang Yu heard that Hua Jingjing was leaving, she immediately stood up and grabbed onto Hua Jingjing's pants. Sister, don't go, okay? Did Xiao Yu make you unhappy? Auntie is about to finish work. Xiao Yu will be all alone again. Hua Jingjing was stunned. Such a young child actually knew how to care about other people's feelings. Seeing this, the auntie immediately explained awkwardly, Xiao Yu only has one relative, Mr. Fang, so she's very sensitive. Hua Jingjing recalled that she had once relied on a man to survive, so she understood how Fang Yu felt. She said to the aunt, "You can go home now. I'll take care of her." It didn't take long for Fang Yu to return to the office. At this time, Mo Ting was still in the airport waiting room. Tang Ning rested her head on Mo Ting's shoulder while Mo Ting held onto his laptop, working on his work. Lu Che handed over the information he had gathered to Mo Ting. After Mo Ting looked it over, he forwarded it to Fang Yu. "Release all of this information tonight." Tang Ning glanced at it and noticed the content. "Why do you have all sorts of negative news about IY? I asked someone for it." Mo Ting explained. "My youngest cousin is a criminal police officer. He just happened to need an excuse to arrest the boss of IY, so I teamed up with him." After hearing this, Tang Ning sighed. "Ting, your family are all outstanding. Just a moment ago, Fang Yu mentioned that Hua Rong's people have escaped. Maybe he's secretly taking pictures of me again. You want to find out if I'm dating a fourth man?" Chapter 282. "In that case, I will have to reluctantly continue to be your fourth and fifth man." Mo Ting gently stroked Tang Ning's hair and placed a kiss on her forehead. Mo Ting gently stroked Tang Ning's hair and placed a kiss on her forehead. "You don't need to worry about anything else. All you need to do is be in your best condition when you see Claudine. Afterwards, you will be able to get your hands on Claudine. You always seem to have so much confidence in me. By the way, will second uncle find out about the photos? Will he be interested in me?" Tang Ning was worried about the way the Mo family looked at her. "Second uncle will only blame me for not taking good care of you," Tang Ning said as she snuggled up to Mo Ting. Tang Ning snuggled up tightly to Mo Ting because he was the only person she could rely on, the husband she trusted, admired, and treasured the most. "Don't worry, with you by my side, I will only become stronger," Tang Ning replied confidently. "Your status in Beijing has already stabilized. If possible, you can spend a little more time interacting with your fans. Now that the photos have been exposed, your fans are worried. In a moment, we will not take the VIP route, we will take the normal route to let your fans know that you are doing well. I've always felt that the people I owe the most are my fans. Although I've given it my all, without their support, I wouldn't be where I am today." Tang Ning nodded in agreement. "Thank you, hubby. I will listen to your arrangements. I am now your manager. Your hubby will only be online at 8 p.m. Tang Ning let out a laugh. Afterwards, the two did not take the VIP route. Tang Ning and Mo Ting both wore sunglasses. Although they had only walked a short distance of 200 meters, countless fans still noticed them. They surrounded them, took photos, shook hands and asked for autographs. Of course, because of Mo Ting's presence, they did not dare to be too presumptuous. But Tang Ning signed everyone she saw and tried her best to satisfy everyone's wishes. "Tang Ning, is that really you kissing in the photo? Who is that man? Tang Ning, do you really have 3 men?" Hearing the fans' questions, Tang Ning couldn't help but turn around as she walked. 3 men? You will need to ask the person beside me if he agrees." The fan glanced at Mo Ting and shrunk back as she smiled awkwardly. "I think this is all nonsense. After all, you have President Mo by your side. Even if you had 100 men, they wouldn't be able to compare to one. You have good taste," Tang Ning praised. Afterwards, Mo Ting held onto her head as they entered the ticket booth. Many fans captured the loving scene and felt the Tang Ning they were interacting with today was a little different from the cold and distant Tang Ning they usually saw. She still walked quickly and wore her sunglasses. But there were also times when she smiled warmly and wasn't completely cold. Was this change brought to her by Mo Ting? Hello everyone, welcome back to the entertainment industry. If we are to talk about the most popular model of the moment, we have to mention Hai Rui's Tang Ning. With her perfect long legs and her professional catwalk, as soon as she appears on stage, she will definitely be the center of attention. However, recently, someone leaked a photo of Tang Ning kissing a man and hinted that Tang Ning has more than one man. I would like to say that the reason Tang Ning is doing so well right now is all because of her own hard work, one step at a time. How could anyone have the heart to slander such a hardworking girl? Today, some onlookers saw Tang Ning on a flight to France. Rumor has it that she was invited by Claudine. Oh God, This is a huge incident in the modeling industry. Above all, Tongning was very relaxed the entire time. She wasn't affected by the photo scandal at all. It seems, a capable person will never let the anger of others stop them from moving forward. By now, Tongning was already a regular on the entertainment news. Of course, by going to France in such a sensational manner, didn't it serve as a reminder to those that were busy checking their itinerary? Whether it was Quan Yi or Hua Rong's editor Lin, both of them booked tickets to France to catch a glimpse of Tongning. Not only did Quan Yi want to show up in front of Tongning, he also hired an expert photo manipulator to completely swap out his photo with Mo Ting's body before posting it to the public. Judging by how much Mo Ting valued Tongning, if he hurt her, it would be the same as hurting Mo Ting. Since he couldn't compare to Mo Ting in any way, all he could do was play around with Tongning. He wanted to see how many people would still believe her. But, since Mo Ting told them to take the normal route, he must have considered the consequences. That night, Fang Yu was a little worried about Hua Jingjing and Fang Yu, so he took the rest of his work home. He gently unlocked the front door. A moment later, Fang Yu saw an adult and a child sleeping on the sofa in the living room. Meanwhile, Hua Jingjing was hugging Fang Yu. They were extremely close. Fang Yu was a little touched. He gently knelt down in front of the sofa and looked at the couple for quite some time. In the end, he realized they weren't covered in blankets, so he quickly ran into the bedroom and pulled out a blanket to help them sleep more comfortably. No woman would ever accept another woman's child, right? With this thought, Fang Yu stood up and tiptoed back to his study room. Hua Jingjing had actually woken up a long time ago. As she felt Fang Yu's gaze on the couple, she was extremely nervous. But, she could also hear Fang Yu's sigh. Soon, it was the second half of the night. Fang Yu stared at his computer the entire time. It was finally his turn to stand up for Hua Jingjing. Every hour, he would release a piece of news about IY. Every time the audience thought this was the lowest he could go, he would always reveal something even more shocking. 3 a.m. a certain social media site was forced to crash by the netizens because of this incident. One of the 10 biggest shady dealings in IY. Is the transformation of special services complete? Undercover revealed. 2 of the 10 biggest shady dealings in IY. A model once refused to go on stage and his body was thrown into the deep sea. 3 of the 10 biggest shady dealings in IY. The police have tried to subpoena him multiple times, but he has a gangster background. After a sleepless night, Fang Yu finally returned to his bedroom early the next morning. Meanwhile, Hua Jingjing was woken up by the sound of her phone ringing. The caller ID showed it was her manager. Jingjing, have a look at the news online. It's blown up. After hanging up the phone, Hua Jingjing immediately logged onto a social media site and saw the latest development of the IY incident. It turned out the person in charge had been subpoenaed by the police. All it took was one night. Had Mo Ting and Fang Yu destroyed an entire brand? Of course, it couldn't be said that they had destroyed the brand. How could they destroy a den of thieves just like that? Did they have to be so cool? Before she became friends with Fang Yu and Tongning, she had always been on her own. So, she had never experienced the charm of a man. It turned out, there was indeed a difference between a man and a crying woman. Especially Fang Yu. She could feel a sense of security from up close. Chapter 283. Hua Jingjing was a little excited. She couldn't help but knock on Fang Yu's study room door. However, after quite some time, Fang Yu finally opened the bedroom door. Over here. You said you could do it in one day. You did it. Hua Jingjing was dressed in a loose white knit sweater as she held her hands behind her back. Her voice was slightly shaky. Just to say this. This is all thanks to President Mo. Fang Yu yawned. His usual handsome image had completely disappeared. President Mo and Tongning have gone to France. I saw the news last night. Even if President Mo played a major role, without your control, the plan would not have succeeded so easily, right? Basically, that's what happened. Fang Yu couldn't be bothered to say more as he returned to bed in his boxer shorts. If possible, prepare breakfast for my daughter. I haven't slept all night and am very tired. When you leave, Just close the door behind you. Hu Jingjing looked down at her shoes. In the end, she couldn't help but ask, what was the reason this time? What reason? Why did you put in so much effort to destroy IY? No reason, it was President Mo's orders, Fang Yu replied calmly before he closed his eyes. Is it not because of me at all? Hu Jingjing suddenly asked loudly. Fang Yu remained silent. However, just as Hu Jingjing was about to give up on getting an answer, Fang Yu suddenly spoke. To put it bluntly, everyone thinks it's pointless. If you really think it's pointless, then stop helping me. I will be more grateful. After speaking, Hu Jingjing turned around. Just as she was about to leave, Fang Yu suddenly sat up and questioned her. Your life has already been ruined by a jerk for over 10 years. Don't tell me you're planning to become a stepmother and let others laugh at you. Is that what you want? To be a laughingstock? I thought you despised my family background. After hearing this, Hu Jingjing suddenly laughed bitterly. I thought you were afraid people would say you picked up a broken shoe. Fang Yu had already woken up from the questioning. He felt it was necessary to clarify everything. So, he put on a bathrobe, pulled Hu Jingjing back into the room and closed the bedroom door. Let's talk. Fang Yu pulled Hu Jingjing over to sit on the edge of the bed. He then looked at her and said in seriousness, as you can see, I have a daughter. So what? I've had 3 abortions. Fang Yu felt all the blood in his body rush to his head. Since Hu Jingjing had already said such words and didn't mind him bringing their daughter along, if he were to back down, wouldn't he be worse than a woman? Xiao Yu is actually my younger brother's daughter. I do have a girlfriend, but she has already passed away. My little brother, Fang Yu. When he was 20, he did something wrong in school. After that, he and his girlfriend had Xiao Yu and abandoned her. Later, I raised Xiao Yu by my side and treated her like my own daughter. Obviously, the photo wasn't deliberately leaked. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to hide it for so long. This is also the reason why they needed to escape, Fang Yu analyzed. No matter what, President Liu Che and I will quickly find out more information about the person in charge. I hope he doesn't cause any more trouble. But, he's here to cause trouble. If we can even deal with IY, why can't we deal with Hua Rong Studio? Fang Yu was in a good mood, he was in high spirits. Perhaps, we can make use of them and beat them at their own game. President Mo, you mean, let's play according to Hua Rong Studio's plan. Let's see how many people want to get involved and deal with them all at once. So, let's see what else Hua Rong Studio wants. The reason why Mo Ting dared to play this game was because he had the leverage of his marriage with Tongning. Anything that Hua Rong said, he could find evidence to refute. Perhaps, he really needed to bring forward a certain matter. Would Tongning blame him? Chapter 284. After their honest discussion that morning, the relationship between Hu Jingjing and Fang Yu had changed. They had successfully become boyfriend and girlfriend. So, she was now able to stay at Fang Yu's home, even though IY's crisis had been resolved. After breakfast, Hu Jingjing and Fang Yu played with building blocks in the living room. After washing up, Fang Yu entered the living room and crossed his arms as he asked Hu Jingjing, "Aren't you going to get changed?" Hu Jingjing did not look at Fang Yu. She continued to play with the building blocks as she replied, "I'll leave tonight. If I go out now, I might be surrounded by reporters again." Fang Yu understood that she wanted to spend a little more time with Fang Yu, so he did not refute and allowed her to stay. "I'm also taking the day off today." Hu Jingjing lifted her head as her eyes lit up. She originally wanted to find a place to develop their relationship, but when she thought about their identities, she lowered her head in disappointment. They were currently in the middle of a storm. It was best if she didn't create too much trouble for Fang Yu. Fang Yu seemed to understand what Hu Jingjing was thinking, so he said, "In a moment, the auntie will come and take care of Xiao Yu. Come to the study room later." "What for? Do you still want to accept a job like IY? You have an international status. The commotion this time has already lowered your value. Your manager will have to take responsibility." In reality, IY's incident had nothing to do with her manager. Hu Jingjing was the one who wanted to escape and get back to work. That was why she accepted the job without fully understanding it. But who was she doing it for? So, Hu Jingjing asked Fang Yu, "What identity are you using to say this to me? It seems, no matter what identity I use, I can control you." Fang Yu did not fall for her trap. Was she joking? If he could be shut down by a single sentence from Hu Jingjing, then he could forget about his position as the director of PR. Perhaps it was because his words were too powerful. Hu Jingjing finally blushed. Of course, her heart felt like it was being washed by a warm spring. It was sweet and a little cloying, but it was a wonderful feeling. If they continued to argue, who knew how much happiness they would miss out on? Luckily, she realized this early on. "Okay, I'll keep Xiao Yu company for a little while longer." Fang Yu nodded his head as he carried the glass of milk into the study room. Afterwards, he continued with his task, gathering information on Hua Rong Studio. Especially when he thought about what Mo Ting said the day before. Fang Yu immediately contacted a friend at Beijing Airport and did a background check on all passengers with the surname Lin. In the end, he locked onto a tall and skinny man called Lin Chong. Fang Yu sent a message to Mo Ting. Because Tong Ning had seen him the most, she was able to confirm his identity with one glance. This man is accompanied by a man and a woman. That woman is quite interesting. Guess who she is? Fang Yu replied in a serious tone after waiting for a few seconds. Charlene. Lin Chong and Lin Mo were far from Lin. Lin Chong and Lin Yu, Mo, Lin Chong and Yun. Seeing Mo Ting, Fang Yu and Lu Chei's video chat, Tong Ning realized Mo Ting had not rested since landing. So, she stood up to prepare a bath for Mo Ting and called the hotel to ask the waiter to prepare some food for him. Lu Chei will fly over from France tomorrow to help. Fang Yu will continue to monitor the situation in Beijing. 10 minutes later, Mo Ting turned off his computer. Tong Ning pulled out a bathrobe and handed it to him. "Go have a bath and then come out to eat something." Mo Ting held onto his neck and did not take the bathrobe. Instead, he tilted his head and asked, "You want me to wash myself? I've washed it. Help me wash up." After speaking, Mo Ting stood up and pulled Tong Ning into the bathroom. Inside the misty bathroom, the two were enveloped in a layer of smoke. After removing his clothes, Mo Ting lay down in the bathtub, exhausted. She pulled out the essential oils prepared by the hotel and sat on the edge of the bathtub as she massaged his shoulders. "Are you feeling better?" Mo Ting did not say a word. Tong Ning looked down and saw Mo Ting had fallen asleep. Unsuspecting, he slept soundly. Tong Ning did not wake him, nor did her slender hands stop massaging him. It was not until 20 minutes later that Tong Ning realized the water had turned cold. Only then did she wake him up. "Go sleep on the bed." Mo Ting got out of the bathtub. Tong Ning immediately handed him a clean towel and ordered, "Lean against the sink, I'll help you shave." Mo Ting put on a bathrobe and obediently followed her instructions. Tong Ning stood between Mo Ting's legs and rubbed the shaving foam around Mo Ting's lips. Just as she was about to use a razor to clean his lips, Mo Ting suddenly pressed his lips down. Tong Ning swallowed the foam a few times as she struggled. "Why are you so tired? Do you still have energy? Wifey, are you doubting my stamina?" Tong Ning was about to explain that she simply wanted Mo Ting to get some rest. But Mo Ting suddenly wrapped his arm around her slender waist and lifted her robe. "You're always so energetic." "Because I need to recharge my batteries." And this was the best way to recharge them. The couple intertwined until the latter half of the night. Just before they fell asleep, Mo Ting suddenly said to Tong Ning, "Tomorrow, I will be meeting with the French director to discuss a film. Come with me." Tong Ning smiled tiredly as she nodded her head. Mo Ting had always been like this. Although he was Tong Ning's manager, as long as Hai Rui had a collaboration with France or other work, he would also make arrangements to optimize the way he handled things. The meeting with Claude N is scheduled for the morning of the day after tomorrow. So, I need to deal with some other work first. Originally, I wanted you to continue resting, but the French director's wife is also a supermodel and she is currently in the US. Before she left her 2-year-old daughter in his care. He can't come by himself. Help me take care of him tomorrow. I have never taken care of a child before. Then, treat it as an early experience. In the future, we will also have children. Okay. Tongning was exhausted from the previous relationship, so she did not think about why she needed to take care of a director's child. He could easily arrange anything he wanted. Mo Ting did not explain. He simply lowered his head and placed a kiss on Tongning's forehead. Go to sleep. Hearing these two words, Tongning subconsciously found a more comfortable position in Mo Ting's embrace. Mo Ting wrapped his arms around her tighter and turned off the bedside lamp. He then fell asleep with his wife. Why did they have to make such arrangements? It was to give Hua Rong a chance to collect material. If they didn't give them a taste of the sweetness, how could they force them to reveal their trump card? What else did they have in their hands, what they planned to do and why they hadn't revealed it yet? They needed to give him an answer. As for Quan Yi, he wanted to see how the clown was going to play. Chapter 285. The meeting with the French director was arranged to be held at the director's manor. Mo Ting and Tongning quietly made their way there. However, halfway there, Mo Ting noticed a black car following behind them. It wasn't hard to tell because the camera was reflective. But Mo Ting pretended not to see anything as his lips curved into a smile. He then sped up the car and drove into the manor's parking lot. Only when she saw the man in person did Tongning realize that the French director Mo Ting wanted to meet was Coke. He was internationally famous and had even won an Academy Award for Best Director. However, over the past 2 years of marriage, in order to focus on taking care of his wife and daughter, his films had decreased in number. Perhaps, it was because his wife wasn't around, but Coke couldn't take care of his daughter on his own. As a result, the little rascal clung to his leg and rubbed against him, but she continued to act mischievously and refused to eat breakfast. Coke's image was a little bad, so he smiled apologetically at Tongning and Mo Ting. I'm sorry, I don't think I can discuss a collaboration with you. To be honest, I never intended to. Mo Ting let out a gentle laugh and pointed to Tongning. My wife should be able to help you solve this problem. As for a collaboration, I think you might be interested. Coke looked Tongning up and down as he adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. You guys have kids too? No, but my wife is very gentle and considerate. I think she's a little better than you, Mr. Coke, Mo Ting replied straightforwardly. Coke shrugged his shoulders in embarrassment. In that case, I'll have to trouble you. Tongning's French wasn't any worse than Mo Ting's. So, she walked up to the little girl and carried her daughter in her arms. She then said to the two men, you guys go ahead and discuss business. Leave the child with me, I will take good care of her. If there's really no other way, I'll ask the auntie for help. Mo Ting looked at Tongning carrying the child and felt his heart skip a beat. He lowered his head and asked, are you sure it's okay? Tongning nodded. Don't underestimate her. Coke looked at his daughter in surprise. She did not resist and was surprisingly obedient in Tongning's arms. He then asked in dissatisfaction, why can't I carry you? The little girl immediately giggled as she wrapped her arms around Tongning's neck. It seemed, this child was only interested in looks. Afterwards, the two men entered the study room to discuss their partnership. Meanwhile, Tongning carried the child to the grass in the garden. As she had asked the maids, the grass had been specially treated, so Tongning sat on the ground with the child in her arms. The little girl's name was Kathy. She was a very lively little girl. Luckily, Tongning was very patient with her. Director Coke's previous film, Desert Escape, broke box office records in Europe and America, but it did not break into the Asian market. I admit that too, Coke said in a serious tone. After all, there is a huge difference between Eastern and Western cultures. Plus, you should know that I don't film Eastern films. I feel like it would ruin my reputation. I don't like to use Eastern actors because most of them have zero acting skills. The East does indeed have more celebrities than actors. But, I think you should look at the script first before giving me an answer. Actors have never been a problem. Mo Ting pulled out the script and placed it in front of the woman. Think about it. Coke glanced at the cover of the script. It wasn't anything fancy or eye-catching. It was just a simple script for the movie Stupid Idiot. It was a very interesting name. Coke could not wait to open the script. The story was about a talented athlete who had a one-night stand with an actress and gave birth to a child. For the sake of his own status, he decided to give the child away. However, a few years later, he finally got married. However, he discovered that he had lost the ability to have children due to excessive exercise. So, he divorced his wife and adopted a disciple. However, this disciple turned out to be the stupidest child in the world. No matter how simple the task was, no matter how many times he tried to teach the child, he would never learn it. Worst of all, he discovered that he had no way of contacting the child's parents. So, when he felt he had been cheated, he repeatedly abandoned the child. In the end, the child was adopted by his enemies. They discovered his talents and groomed him to become a talent. The child had the same athletic talent as him and had broken countless world records. However, when the child stood on the podium, he only had one sentence in his mouth: "My biological father abandoned me 12 times. I want to prove to him that he is a jerk." After reading through the script, Coke slapped his thigh. Amazing. Truly amazing. In that case, Mr. Coke, do you still want to reject it? Mo Ting asked confidently as he stroked his lower lip. This is only a rough outline, yet it's already so amazing. Then, Coke's eyes lit up. I agree to join, but, as an actor, I can guarantee that my acting will be perfect. Okay, Coke nodded his head in agreement. Not long after, the two men heard the sound of laughter coming from the garden. Coke held onto his script and looked out the window. Seeing Tangning hugging Kathy and rolling around on the ground, he laughed. Your wife seems to like children a lot. Have you decided to keep them? I want her to enjoy a few more years of being doted on like a daughter by me. After all, a woman has a lot more fetters in her life than a man. After becoming a mother, she will naturally have fetters. Coke nodded his head. President Mo is right. Chapter 286. After discussing the deal, Coke wanted to invite the couple to dinner, but Mo Ting politely declined. The couple bid farewell to Coke and the manor before Mo Ting drove Tongning back to the hotel. On the way back, Mo Ting couldn't help but ask, "How does it feel to interact with your child?" "I can't take it." Tongning thought for a moment before replying, "Kathy is too naughty." "All right, I'll remember it," Mo Ting suddenly said. From now on, our children can't be too naughty," Mo Ting replied in seriousness. Tongning let out a gentle laugh and looked at Mo Ting. "What do you think a child is? You can even filter them." "I can teach." As soon as Tongning heard these words, she suddenly imagined her strict father, Mo Ting, sitting on the sofa in the living room while a little radish stood in front of him and apologized. Just thinking about it made her feel good. "Do you really want it?" This time, Mo Ting shook his head in seriousness. "Wait a few more years. Right now, I just want to dote on you." Tongning originally wanted to lean into Mo Ting's driver's seat and plant a kiss on his cheek, but Mo Ting reminded her, "It's dangerous, sit tight." "Is it danger, or is someone following us?" "Did you think, with my sensitivity, I wouldn't have noticed the black car following us?" "That camera was too reflective, it pierced my eyes a few times. Just now at the manor, there were also pictures of me and Cav together, right? What's going on?" "The people from Hua Rong Studio are following us," Mo Ting said. As expected, he couldn't look down on his woman. His observation was very detailed. "What do they want?" "According to the comments that they left on the internet, they are probably trying to slander you for having a lot of men. Now they are collecting more evidence." "So, you played along?" Tongning guessed. "But I can't wait any longer. I want to take this opportunity to announce our relationship. I want to tell everyone that you are my wife and the woman I cherish the most. But, if I were to announce it to the public, Hua Rong would continue to gather evidence behind my back to blame you and slander you." "You are my wife," Mo Ting suddenly said as he drove the car into a corner. He then looked at Tongning and explained, "I want to take this opportunity to announce our relationship. I want to tell everyone that you are my wife and the woman I cherish the most." Rather than that, I might as well wait for him to use his ultimate move first, wait for him to reveal his trump card, and when he's completely defeated, I'll take the opportunity to announce it. So, you deliberately misled Hua Rong's people, right? Also, previously at the airport, you said we were going to take the normal exit so you could tell others where we were. Tang Ning finally understood everything that Mo Ting had done. Hua Rong's people were actually able to keep their composure. They definitely didn't just release a simple photo. One look and you could tell that Editor Lin was ambitious. Editor Lin wasn't hard to deal with, but Mo Ting wanted an opportunity to help him and Tang Ning. Will you blame me? Blame you for what? Tang Ning's eyes suddenly turned red. Blame you for putting in so much effort to scheme? Or blame you for scheming because you wanted to protect me and wanted others to acknowledge me? Just like how I dealt with Han Yufan and Mo Euro in front of you, I hope the Mo Ting I see is the real Mo Ting. I love you, so I'm willing to stand by your side. We still have to spend the rest of our lives together. Mo Ting stretched out his arms and pulled Tang Ning into his embrace. He then couldn't help but sigh, God has truly treated me well because he gave you to me. Trust me, I will only give you the best. Tang Ning had always believed in him and she planned to continue believing in him. So, she said confidently, let's announce it. Let's just use the incident with Hua Rong Studio as an excuse. After all, they just want to destroy me with more scandals. I never thought Tang Ning would be so capable. She even played with the daughter of a famous director like Coke. After a busy day, Hua Rong's people returned to the hotel they were staying at. Editor Lin looked at the photo and said to his subordinates, what do you mean by the daughter of a famous director? We must say she is Tang Ning's illegitimate daughter, but this time, Mo Ting was also there. It was obviously for work. Editor Lin glanced at his stupid subordinate and waved him over, say that Tang Ning has an illegitimate daughter in France, then release a photo of them playing together and do an analysis of their faces. Do you think the public will notice if this is true or not? Isn't this a little too vicious? Hi Ruiz, people have already made it impossible for us to go. If we don't hurry up and turn the situation around, you can forget about ever appearing in Beijing again, Editor Lin said straightforwardly. Hurry up and write me a report. Tomorrow, Team 2 will be on standby. As long as Tang Ning is overseas, I refuse to believe she can withstand the loneliness. But, editor, don't forget, Mo Ting is by her side. She won't be able to do anything. That may not be true. Do you think a fickle woman like her can change her nature? But, Mo Ting is already the best in the world. How can she not be satisfied? How thirsty is this woman? Stop talking nonsense. Tomorrow, Team 2 will be on standby, Editor Lin instructed. Because of Mo Ting's presence, the chances of them getting anything substantial were very low. But, that didn't mean they had to be lucky. In reality, they had no idea that Mo Ting had always been there. And, the three men he was referring to were actually Mo Ting. Of course, this was all planned by President Mo. It was better than letting Hua Rong capture all sorts of photos and then come back later to find evidence. At least, they were already prepared. All they had to do was wait for Hua Rong to fall into their trap. That night in Beijing, a bone-piercing cold wind blew past. After dinner, Fang Yu looked at Hua Jingjing. His eyes seemed to say, didn't you say you'd leave at night? I don't think the reporters will notice you at this time. Put on a disguise, I'll take you home. Hua Jingjing immediately responded, I don't have any clothes to wear. Did you forget? I came here in underwear. I asked your assistant to bring it to you. I just went downstairs to get it. When? Hua Jingjing asked awkwardly. You and Yu went to get it while you were taking an afternoon nap. Hurry and change. Must you chase me away? Hua Jingjing didn't really want to return to her apartment. It was cold, lonely, and she liked to let her imagination run wild. You have a guest room. Even if you can't, I can sleep on the sofa. When you're not around, I can keep you company. Plus, if I want to find you, I don't need to make a phone call. Perhaps, she was afraid Fang Yu would misunderstand her, so Hua Jingjing added, this apartment has too many bad memories. Plus, Zhen Mani sent people to block my door, so it's no longer a secret. I'll sell it and buy it next door. I have no family or ties, it doesn't really matter where I live. Let's go collect our things. This was actually what Fang Yu wanted to say. Chapter 287. That night in France, Tongning was sitting under the lights flipping through a magazine. After Mo Ting finished his work, he suddenly walked over to her side and said, "The Japanese designer that originally wanted to custom make your jewelry has to return to China because his wife is in the hospital waiting to give birth. So, we will be taking your measurements tonight." Custom-made jewelry? Tongning put down the magazine and looked at him suspiciously. "I've never heard you mention this before. I am your manager, so I am naturally in charge of arranging these things." Mo Ting gently smiled as he sat down beside her. Mo Ting's lips gently curved upwards as he sat down beside her. "I know you don't like to wear jewelry and diamonds, but since you're already married to me, there are some occasions where you can't avoid using them. Look at other models, they can't wait to live in luxury jewelry stores. But what about you? I am doing this to help you save money." Tongning had never liked things like jewelry, nor did she like to be flashy. She preferred to keep things simple. "There are still 3 hours before the designer returns to China. I have a meeting to attend later. Drive to the hotel and look for him. His entire team will be there, they just need to take a measurement." Tongning received the car keys from Mo Ting's hands. She understood why he was doing this. "So, did you want to order jewelry for me, or did you want to leave some material for Hua Rong?" "Of course, I wanted to order jewelry for you. I've looked through the jewelry boxes at home a few times and couldn't find anything you like to wear." Mo Ting picked up his laptop and showed Tongning her schedule. "This was decided a long time ago. You were the one that didn't notice." "Okay. I'll go." Tongning thought about it. Apart from work and requests from business partners, she really didn't like to wear expensive baggage. But, as a model, she was a bit too plain. "Be careful. If anything happens, give me a call. I'll pick you up later." Tongning smiled as she packed up a little and grabbed her handbag and keys before leaving the hotel. Of course, to create the appropriate effect, Tongning even wore sunglasses. It seemed she was afraid of being discovered. The couple's acting was getting more and more realistic. The people from Hua Rong waited outside the hotel for an entire day. From the cigarette butts by their feet, it was obvious how anxious they were. Especially at night, it was extremely cold. The 3 men wrapped themselves tightly in their clothes and hid their heads deeper into their collars. "Motherfucker, Tongning is the hardest person to follow," someone couldn't help but complain. His companion patted him on the shoulder and smiled helplessly. "Who asked her to be so shrewd? With this woman scheming, I would be surprised if she didn't get to where she is now. I really don't know when these bitter days will end. My luck has come." The 3 of them looked over to where Mo Ting had parked his car, only to see Tongning enter the car park on her own. After confirming there was no one around, she boarded her car and left. The 3 of them exchanged glances with each other. Then, they checked the cameras again and quickly followed. "This woman is taking a detour the whole time. She's shopping and buying things. Is she leading us in circles? Taking photos is just a waste of memory. Let's follow him for a while longer." Tongning guessed the people at Hua Rong had run out of patience. So, she boarded her car and sped towards the hotel address Mo Ting gave her. After arriving at the hotel, Tongning parked her car in the garage. After stepping out of the car, she was in no rush to leave. 5 minutes later, a tall and skinny young man stepped out of the elevator and received Tongning. The 2 of them then stepped into the elevator one after the other. The people at Hua Rong continued to take photos furiously. The 3 of them worked together and took many photos of Tongning and the man. They excitedly slapped their thighs. "Editor Lin is right. This woman can't handle loneliness. Perhaps Mo Ting is getting old, so he can't satisfy her. Regardless, our mission has been successfully completed." The 3 of them were excited for quite some time before they sent all the photos to Editor Lin. "Editor, you better prepare your reward as soon as possible." Lin Chong looked at the photos. His eyes were like a wolf's, fierce and piercing. "Tongning, Let's see where you can run to this time. I won't forget about your benefits. After Tongning comes out, you guys should immediately return to the hotel. We already have enough evidence to make a big move. There's no need to risk following her any further, Lin Chong instructed. Finally, long live liberation. Let's go back and watch a good show. The three of them were extremely excited. However, they did not notice that behind them, Mo Ting was also parked in a hidden corner in another car. All they saw was him looking at the three paparazzi coldly. His ink-black eyes contained a slight sense of mockery, but it was mostly filled with indifference. Mo Ting was, of course, worried about Tongning driving on her own, especially since she was being followed by the paparazzi. So, even if something really happened, he had to suppress it. So, when Tongning gave him a phone call, he asked, "Have you taken your measurements?" "Yes, I'll wait for you at the hotel." "No need, I'm already here." "You can come down," Mo Ting replied. Tongning looked at the time. She had only been up for 20 minutes. "Were you following behind me?" "No. I was following behind you," Mo Ting explained as he described the state of the people behind him. They should be waiting for the celebration party to start. From the looks of it, they seemed to be in a good mood. After speaking, Mo Ting started the car and left the parking lot. He then headed straight for the hotel entrance to pick up Tongning. As for the three unlucky people in the parking lot, he was going to let them wait. It would be best if they thought Tongning had stayed up there all night. "Do you feel uncomfortable doing this?" Tongning looked straight ahead and remained silent for a few seconds. She then replied, "Why would I feel uncomfortable? I didn't hurt anyone in the first place. I've always played my part and haven't done anything out of line. I don't understand why Lin Chong won't let me off the hook. This reporter is different from other paparazzi. He's doing this for money, but it's not all for money. From the start, it was indeed a coincidence that he bumped into you. Afterwards, he may have misunderstood you. Plus, Lu Che has already found information on him. He's been married 3 times and divorced 3 times, Mo Ting explained. Due to his failed marriage, he developed a strong hatred towards women. So, he decided to change his career from a radio host to a paparazzi. He used his so-called sense of justice to pry into other people's private affairs." Tongning smiled calmly as her anger subsided. In fact, she found it funny. It's quite a strange feeling to be hated by a stranger. But, he has so many anti-fans. What does he think he is? One day, the truth will come to light and he will regret it. I know, you will make me pay for everything I've suffered. Chapter 288. Mo Ting stretched out his hand and lovingly stroked Tongning's hair, of course. In actual fact, the thing that Mo Ting admired the most about Tongning was her clear-cut personality. If she was right, she was right. If she was wrong, she was wrong. She had a clear attitude and was never sloppy. She was always clean and efficient. So, she was suited for the entertainment industry. She was suited for the ups and downs of the industry with him. So, what he wanted to do the most was to bring her glory. After the couple returned to the hotel, Tongning sat beside Mo Ting and looked through some documents with him. However, Mo Ting turned his head and looked at Tongning's slightly closed eyes. He let out a gentle laugh and said, "You have an interview with Claudine tomorrow, hurry and get some rest." "I want to hug you to sleep," Tongning replied in a raspy voice. Mo Ting looked at the documents in front of him before leading Tongning to sit on the bed. He then patted his chest. "Come here." Tongning lifted the blankets and lay down beside Mo Ting as she wrapped her arms around his waist. Mo Ting held onto Tongning with one hand and held onto the documents in the other. He suddenly realized he couldn't flip to the next page. Tongning was tightly hugging onto his arm like she was doing it on purpose. Mo Ting suddenly understood her intention. He put down the documents, picked up his phone and gave Lu Che a phone call. "President, Director Zhang has already contacted me a few times. He wants to invest in Stupid under the name of Bayou Film and Television. But, I'm guessing this is his son Jaking's idea. The funds for Stupid are already in place. If they contact you again, just reject them. Mo Ting said in a low voice. But, he is our shareholder. Plus, Director Seng has already transferred 3.2% of Hai Rui's shares to his son, Jaking. I'm sure Jaking wants to interfere with Hai Rui's operations. So, I can't rule out the possibility that he will make more moves in the future. Perhaps, my recent actions have made them think I've been blinded by lust. Has an opportunity arrived? President, I'm just reporting to you. Something like this isn't enough for you to worry about, Lu Che immediately replied. Keep a close eye on them. After speaking, Mo Ting hung up the phone and gently placed it on the bedside table. Mo Ting hugged Tong Ning and lay down. In the dark, Mo Ting's eyes flickered. There were always greedy people who coveted Hai Rui's management rights. Did he think he would be Tong Ning's manager? Couldn't he manage Hai Rui? Was he questioning his ability? 10 p.m. in France was 8 a.m. in Beijing. This was the first night that Hu Jingjing moved into Fang Yu's home. Of course, nothing happened. She slept in the guest room. Hu Jingjing woke up early. It didn't take long before she heard Fang Yu open the door. Hu Jingjing hurriedly got out of bed and opened the door. Just in time to see Fang Yu walking into the kitchen in his boxers. Fang Yu froze for a moment. He never expected Hu Jingjing to wake up so early. He quickly returned to the bedroom and put on a robe before reappearing in front of Hu Jingjing. Why are you up so early? I have an interview today. I will probably go abroad in 2 days. Plus, it's almost January. For the fashion week in March, I might be staying abroad for a long time. Fang Yu nodded his head, but his face remained expressionless. He simply replied, I can't leave the country. Hai Rui is quite busy. I'm not asking you to accompany Tong Ning like President Mo. Hu Jingjing paused for a moment before she continued, if I return after 3 months, will you become someone else's boyfriend again? Or perhaps, a female artist like Zhen Mani that needs you to support her? It turned out, it was a woman's sense of danger that was causing trouble. Fang Yu pulled out some milk and breakfast ingredients from the fridge. As he closed the fridge door, he said, I only have 2 girlfriends. The older one is currently standing in front of my kitchen and the younger one is sleeping in my nursery. Hu Jingjing felt a little silly, so she gently approached Fang Yu from behind and wrapped her arms around him. You don't seem to be very passionate towards me. Fang Yu did not say a word. He simply laughed as he freed himself from Hu Jingjing's embrace and returned to the bedroom. As he reappeared, he was holding a household register in his hand and handing it to Hu Jingjing. After she passed away, Xiao Yu's incident happened. It's been almost 7 years since I've been in this industry. Apart from Auntie, you are the only woman that has ever entered my home. So, why are you giving me this? Do you want to get married? Tell me. You are the only person that has made me feel this way. Hu Jingjing froze. They had just become a couple 2 nights ago. Did he just propose to her today? I'm not asking you to tell me right now. I just want you to know my attitude. The two had experienced so much and carried so much on their shoulders. To be able to survive and have a future was already a blessing from God. Hu Jingjing hugged the household register as her eyes turned red. Tong Ning is right. God always leaves the best for last. He wants me to understand that all the suffering I've endured was worth it. Fang Yu leaned over and placed a kiss on Hu Jingjing's forehead. He then said to her, Go get changed. While you're at it, take you to freshen up. On the surface, Fang Yu appeared to be a relaxed person. At times, he even gave off a frivolous vibe. But, Hu Jingjing knew, on the inside, he suffered more than most people. It didn't matter. She was going to give him a new life. 9 in France. Inside a specially decorated studio, Tong Ning and Mo Ting met with the world's top master, Claude. He was an old French designer with a full beard. As soon as he saw Tong Ning, he couldn't help but gasp in admiration at her legs. These are the most beautiful legs I've ever seen. Claude welcomes you to join us. Sometimes, it was hard to understand what these masters were aiming for. Of course, It was normal for Tongning to be chosen because of her legs. But there were also people who were chosen because of their round buttocks, their fingers, their feet, and there were even people who were chosen because of a mole. I'm very satisfied. Let's talk about signing a contract, the master praised Tongning. However, I have a condition. You need to stay in France and become a model for my agency. I need a pair of legs like this. I like legs like this. After hearing the man's request, Tongning furrowed her brows. Of course, your manager can also join us. Tongning looked around Claude N's studio carefully. She noticed on his desk were all sorts of photos of models' legs. To be exact, he had an obsession with legs. Claude N. I think I've already made my stance clear over the phone. She will only accept this one shoot. Mo Ting emphasized his stance in a calm manner. But, in reality, he did not reveal his identity to the woman either. Claude N turned around and looked at the two unhappily. Tongning is the first Asian model I've ever invited. Don't tell me you guys don't want such a good opportunity. You should know that the people I've invited have always attracted a lot of attention and sensation. Doesn't Tongning need it right now? She won't sell her body. If she wants to sell something, she will only sell it to me, Mo Ting replied straightforwardly. Chapter 289. Claude. N continued to measure the measurements on the workbench as he gestured towards the door with his chin. Since that's the case, I won't be seeing you out. He was, after all, a master with an eccentric temperament. However, Tongning felt her previous evaluation of Claude N was a little too polite. She was going to re-evaluate Claude N. He was an out-and-out fetishist. Claude N thought Mo Ting would lower his stance and show an expression of wanting to negotiate. But Mo Ting had no intention of doing that. Protecting Tongning, he turned around to leave. However, at this time, Quan Yi appeared in front of Claude N's studio with a model from Star King. As the two parties faced each other, Quan Yi couldn't help but laugh. Could it be our always successful president Mo has a moment where he loses? Mo Ting looked at Quan Yi calmly. He didn't seem to care about him at all. Do you want me to put in a few good words for Tongning to Claude N? To be honest, I've actually become quite familiar with him over the past 2 days, Quan Yi said casually as he brushed the raindrops off his body. It's raining in Paris, it's so cold. No one knew better than Mo Ting what Quan Yi had done over the past 2 days. Don't forget, Lu Che had already arrived in France the day before. You should first beat me at the poker table before we talk, Mo Ting chuckled. He wrapped his arm around Tongning's shoulder and prepared to leave. However, Quan Yi once again spoke up and held them back. Does this count as Hai Rui losing to Star King? After all, Tongning didn't manage to secure Claude N's high-end film. In reality, Tongning felt this wasn't Mo Ting's usual style. Just a moment ago, Claude N simply made a request, but Mo Ting had no intention of discussing it with him. Instead, he directly rejected Claude N by saying she would only sell herself to him. It seemed reasonable, but it wasn't something Mo Ting had to do. He would never do something he wasn't confident in. This is probably what Star King is after. If you beat me and get Claude N, would that be the ultimate glory? Mo Ting's lips suddenly curved upwards. Tongning glanced at him and felt he was about to make a big move. As expected, Mo Ting said calmly, actually, Claude N is just a backup. I can't find a reason to reject him. Quan Yi let out a laugh. He thought Mo Ting was simply trying to save his face. However, Mo Ting pulled out his phone and opened up an email invitation. Fearless was the overall winner of the last international design competition. Claude North came in 5th place and coincidentally, Fearless is Claude N's ex-wife. Most importantly, she is a righteous person and won't stare at my Tongning's legs. You like Claude N? I'll leave it to you then. After speaking, Mo Ting led Tongning out of Claude N's office, leaving behind Quan Yi with a pale expression. Seeing Quan Yi's pale face, Tongning couldn't help but ask Mo Ting, "What's going on?" "How can you do so many things behind my back? You were never separated from me. You don't need to go out to talk about invitations. You can do it with your computer and phone. Then what's with Fearless?" Translator, Uni Editor, Uni Mo Ting drove as he smiled at the curious Tongning. The passenger list that Fang Yu received also included Quan Yi. "So, I asked Lu Che to fly to Paris and keep an eye on him. I found out that Quan Yi had approached Claude N in private. When I met with Director Koch at the manor, I told him you were also a model. But, I never expected he would recommend you to Fearless. I only received the phone call last night. But, I told the other party that I already had a preliminary agreement with Claude N, but the other party was still willing to wait. So, if Claude N didn't go overboard, perhaps you would have asked me to work with him. But, that doesn't mean we have no other options." Mo Ting nodded. "There's also one more thing, Quan Yi." It seemed, the slap from earlier had hit Quan Yi in the heart. Right now, not only will Quan Yi be angered to death, Claude N will also be angered to death. As soon as he stared at your legs, I decided to give up on Claude N, Mo Ting said coldly. "After he looked at you 10 times, I was so tempted to gouge his eyes out. Manager Mo, you are truly amazing." Tongning couldn't help but sigh. Mo Ting did not say anything. In reality, luck also played a part in this matter. But, in this industry, a person without luck would never become famous, no matter how much support they had. "Let's go meet with Fearless right now." Tongning never imagined that her trip to France would have such a twist. But, everything felt a little surreal. Perhaps, it was because Mo Ting had arranged everything on his own. Tongning felt like Mo Ting had done too much behind the scenes, making her feel a little uneasy. Seeing Tongning suddenly fall silent, Mo Ting asked, "What are you thinking about?" "I thought I could keep up with your thoughts. But now, I realize, I'm actually quite far from it. If you want to become a VIP at Fearless, you need to be more professional." "That's what you need to do," Mo Ting explained seriously. "Over the past 2 days, a lot has happened. I didn't mean to hide it from you. It's just that time was tight and I didn't want to make you feel too emotional. The higher you stand, the more enemies you will face. There are a lot of things you can't control and need to learn to let go." Tongning closed her eyes. Her emotions were a little complicated. It wasn't that she didn't think she was smart enough. She simply felt that she had such a powerful husband. What would she do without him in the future? "You've spoiled me so much that I can't think on my own." Tongning leaned her head on Mo Ting's shoulder as the two headed to meet with Fearless. The French woman who had only started her career as a designer after her divorce was extremely friendly as soon as she saw Tongning. She even took the initiative to give her a hug. "Welcome. I like the story of Stupid. Coke shared it with me. I hope your husband doesn't mind." Tongning looked at Mo Ting questioningly as Mo Ting lowered his head and smiled helplessly. "Don't worry, he only mentioned a small part and asked me to help him design a costume." Of course, Mo Ting was aware that this involved breaching the contract and leaking trade secrets. But, he had no intention of using a world-class designer's design. That would cost too much. "So, I have a bold suggestion. I want to use your wife's image to design the costume of the actress who has a one-night stand with the athlete. Then, we can film a big film and achieve a win-win situation. This way, the film will be able to enter the European and American market and my costume will be recognized by Asians. What do you think, President Mo?" Mo Ting smiled charmingly. "It's a good thing Fearless isn't in the entertainment industry. Otherwise, I would have gained another strong competitor. President Mo sure knows how to talk." Just like that, Tongning and Mo Ting's work began to have a real connection. After a pleasant lunch, the two returned to the hotel. Tongning heard about the script for Stupid from Mo Ting and felt it was exceptionally interesting. It's rare to see such an outstanding script in China. "I wonder which screenwriter wrote it. You don't know, Mo Ting replied. Tang Ning had a vague guess, but she did not ask further. Chapter 290. As it involved a collaboration with Stupid, Phearl's costume had to be custom-made for Tang Ning. The actual filming would take at least half a month later. While Tang Ning was being measured, Mo Ting and Fearless were sitting to one side drinking coffee. Fearless turned her head and looked at Tang Ning. She then asked Mo Ting curiously, "Have you decided on an actress?" "I'm still in the process of contacting her," Mo Ting replied. "Although the actress won't make many appearances, her scenes are still important." "Why don't you consider her?" Fearless asked as she pointed to Tang Ning with her chin. "Don't you plan to let her develop in the film and television industry? This is a good opportunity." Mo Ting tilted his head and looked at Tang Ning without saying a word. He simply smiled meaningfully at Fearless. The autumn-winter fashion week is about to start. With Tang Ning's professionalism and long legs, it's only a matter of time before she becomes famous. I feel, once she reaches this level, she will be interested in doing something else. The feeling of appearing on the runway and on television is completely different. She likes to take things one step at a time. After taking her measurements, Tang Ning returned to Mo Ting's side and looked at the two. "What were you talking about? How did you know we were talking about you?" Mo Ting tilted his head and asked with interest. "Because your gaze has never left me," Tang Ning replied. "My gaze has always been on you." After speaking, Mo Ting stood up and shook Phearl's hand before leaving with Tang Ning. However, before they left, Fearless leaned against the door and crossed her arms as she reminded Mo Ting. "You should really consider it." Mo Ting replied with a smile before he left with Tang Ning. "I've booked a flight back to China tonight. Tomorrow, I will be attending the press conference for a super IP. Your fashion week is also about to start, so I need to make some time early." "What did Fearless say you were considering?" Tang Ning hadn't forgotten the mysterious conversation they had just had. "We'll talk about it later." Mo Ting tilted his head and looked at Tang Ning with a passionate gaze. "We still have some time in the afternoon. Let's go shopping in Paris. We haven't gone shopping in a long time. Is that okay? Is it okay for us to go out hand in hand?" "I'll satisfy you." Mo Ting tapped the tip of Tang Ning's nose as he smiled dotingly. Tang Ning was too easily satisfied. Even a small thing like this could make her happy for a long time. After returning to the hotel, Lu Che had completed his mission and returned to Mo Ting's side. However, when he saw Mo Ting, his expression was unusually serious. Tang Ning realized he probably had business to talk to Mo Ting about, so she freed herself from Mo Ting's grip and said, "You deal with work first, I can walk around on my own." "Madam, Long Jie wants me to bring something back." "But, I don't know how to tell if it's real or fake." Lu Che pulled out a list from his pocket. Speaking of which, Long Jie had given her a phone call before leaving the country. So, she received the list from Lu Che and said, "Leave it to me, I'll go buy it." Mo Ting held onto Tang Ning's hands and looked at her apologetically. "I promised I would accompany you. I know France better than you. I won't get lost. Plus, I know that as long as it's something that can be pushed aside, you won't hesitate. So, hurry up and get back to work. Then stay nearby. Don't go too far." "Okay," Tang Ning nodded. Mo Ting was still worried, so he asked the hotel to send 2 bodyguards to follow behind Tang Ning. In order not to leave Mo Ting's line of sight, Tang Ning walked around the hotel and eventually found a cafe to sit down. If she knew that this afternoon in France would be the most leisurely time in her life, would she cherish it even more? After sitting in the cafe for a while, Tang Ning decided to return to the hotel. But, just as she stood up, she noticed someone had recognized her and was following her. Tang Ning did not stop as she directly returned to the hotel. As she pushed open the door, she noticed Mo Ting and Quan Yi were busy, so she decided to quietly watch a movie. In reality, The person following Tang Ning wasn't a normal passerby. He was someone that Quan Yi had sent to wait outside the hotel. After seeing the bodyguards following Tang Ning out, he carefully avoided them. He did not disturb Tang Ning as he followed her around to take photos. Afterwards, he sent Tang Ning's photos to Quan Yi and told him to go to the same places. He pretended to be the two of them drinking coffee and walking around the streets. One was walking in front and the other was walking behind. They were simply in different frames, but it was enough to leave the imagination of the public. Did Mo Ting not want to take him along? Yet, he insisted on joining them. That night, Tang Ning and the other two returned to Beijing. However, at the airport, they still ran into the persistent Quan Yi. To be exact, he did this on purpose. President Mo, what a coincidence. I never thought we would be fated to meet. Is it a coincidence? Mo Ting laughed. Whether it's a coincidence or not, I'm sure you know. But, the person who followed him closely wanted to see what tricks he had up his sleeves. President, let's go, time to board the plane. Lu Che had been following this playboy for an entire day. He had no idea what this spoilt brat was doing. Above all, he couldn't figure out who had given him such a strange view of the world. So, he did not have a good impression of this spoilt brat. For a person that made destroying others his mission, would his future be interesting? Quan Yi shrugged his shoulders and followed behind Lu Che to board the plane. Of course, whether Quan Yi knew Mo Ting's flight number depended on whether Mo Ting wanted him to know. Everyone was seated in first class. But, Mo Ting and Tang Ning completely ignored Quan Yi. So, before the plane took off, Quan Yi posted the message he had prepared on his social media page, a short date. The accompanying photo was of a woman's back, followed by 2 empty coffee cups and finally, his own back. As soon as the message was posted, Quan Yi's social media page exploded. At first, no one recognized Tang Ning. But, it wasn't until Tang Ning's flight landed that the clothes she was wearing were exactly the same as the woman in Quan Yi's photo. No way. Tang Ning, who was with Mo Ting, was actually going on a date with Quan Yi? Quick, look at this. This is a photo of a fan welcoming Tang Ning. Isn't this the same person as the photo posted by the heir of Star King? Isn't it? Immediately, someone pulled out the photo and compared it to the photo. They immediately screamed, "What kind of plot twist is this? How did Tang Ning get involved with that spoilt brat? Are they trying to break up the couple? No way, didn't President Mo follow them the entire time? I think it's because they are close in age, so they have a common language. Does Tang Ning not reject anyone?" Online, news of Tang Ning and Quan Yi's trip spread like wildfire. If not for the person directly involved, even Hu Jingjing would have thought Tang Ning had gone drinking coffee with the spoilt brat. So, she immediately gave Fang Yu a phone call. "Have you seen Tang Ning's message? What's going on?" "I'm working on PR," Fang Yu quickly replied. Chapter 291. The situation at the airport wasn't looking good either. Tang Ning currently had a large group of fans and Quan Yi's photo had already been released before he boarded the plane. After 11 hours of build-up, Beijing Airport was a difficult place for Tang Ning to walk. Not to mention, Mo Ting and Quan Yi were walking out of the terminal together. But, Mo Ting was prepared as he escorted Tang Ning through the airport. Before anyone could react, he had already led Tang Ning to the exit of the terminal. The people from Hai Rui immediately drove up and Mo Ting escorted Tang Ning into the car. Before they were surrounded by the cameras, they turned around and left the airport. But, Quan Yi was blocked at the exit. As the reporters chased after him, Quan Yi chewed on his gum in a frivolous manner, completely ignoring them. "President Quan, what is your relationship with Tang Ning? Is it convenient for you to reveal it? President Quan, could it be that you and Tang Ning are on a date? President Quan, please say a few words." President Kwan. Seeing some of the reporters fall over from trying to surround him, Kwan Yi finally stopped in his tracks. He removed his sunglasses and replied, "Whatever you see is the truth. I have nothing to say." The reporters were stunned. Was Kwan Yi silently admitting to the reporters' questions? Was he admitting to his relationship with Tongning? But how was that possible? Tongning had Mo Ting by her side and everyone knew about the relationship between Hai Rui and Star King. Although they weren't as incompatible as fire and water, they definitely weren't on good terms. Kwan Yi looked at the reporters' reactions and was satisfied. He then let out a laugh as he put his sunglasses back on. Under the protection of airport security, he quickly left Beijing Airport, leaving behind a group of reporters who looked at each other in confusion. But can Kwan Yi's words be trusted? Since when does a spoilt brat like Kwan Yi's words hold any weight? Exactly, President Mo hasn't said anything yet. We will believe whatever Mo Ting says. But the problem is, we can't see President Mo at all. Tongning never expected that, after a few days overseas, she would witness the grand event from a few days ago. As soon as she turned on her phone, she was bombarded with phone calls from Long Jie and Hu Jingjing. They were all asking about Kwan Yi and what kind of curse she had fallen under. Long Jie even asked if she had let Mo Ting down. Of course, Tongning knew he was joking. But, because the phone was on speakerphone, Mo Ting heard Long Jie's question. He immediately snatched the phone out of Tongning's hand and said, "Even if it's a joke, you need to be moderate." Long Jie was shocked. She suddenly realized her words had made Tongning feel uncomfortable, so she quickly explained, "That's not what I meant. Forget it." She then looked at Mo Ting and asked, "Did you know about this beforehand?" Mo Ting looked at Tongning seriously with a hint of fierceness. "Did you think I knew about this beforehand?" "I don't know." Although she knew asking a question like this at a time like this would undoubtedly make Mo Ting uncomfortable, she had already promised that she wouldn't hide anything from him. "Tongning, I'm not a god. I can't predict everything. Over the past 2 days, I've been in a daze. My thoughts haven't been able to keep up with yours. That's why I asked," Tongning explained. "I won't be able to catch up to you in a short amount of time. But I can't just wait around like a fool. I thought, even if I didn't say it, we would still be of one mind. At least, when an outsider asks, I would be able to say the same thing as you and let them know that we are one." Mo Ting took a deep breath. The temporary depression in his heart suddenly dissipated as he hugged Tongning and explained, "If I had known Kwan Yi would use this trick, I would have made it so that he would never be able to enter the entertainment industry and completely disappear. I didn't protect you well enough. Don't you think it's too early for you to say that?" Tongning suddenly laughed. "I refuse to believe that you can't come up with a solution. I refuse to believe that you sent bodyguards just to protect me. Plus, we have always been in the shadows." President Mo Ting smiled as he placed Tongning on his lap. He then gently stroked her hair with his slender fingers. "What should we do? In the past, I could tolerate people talking bad about you, but now, I can't tolerate a single word. But I've already gotten used to it." Tongning replied gently, "From now on, you need to tell me every single decision you make. In that case, if I told you that I already knew Kwan Yi would do this, would you really argue with me?" "A big date," Tongning nodded. "After all, we are two people. After being together for so long, we understand each other better. So, there are bound to be areas where we argue. But, after asking that question, I immediately regretted it. In the end, I was the one who felt bad." Mo Ting lowered his head and looked at Tongning's head. In reality, he was the one who felt the same way. But the Tongning that was like this made him feel more at ease. She was more like a real person. "The bodyguard that was following you had a pinhole camera on him. As soon as he realized someone was following you, he immediately gave me a phone call. But, because the person didn't follow you for too long and didn't do anything extreme, the bodyguard didn't report it to me. Mrs. Mo, I simply knew that Kwan Yi had sent someone to follow you. Who would have thought, he was actually trying to fabricate evidence." "Did you record everything?" Tongning grasped onto the main point. I'll have to confirm it when I get back. But, the part where you were shopping alone is definitely complete, Mo Ting replied. This time, Tong Ning let out a laugh as her mood improved. Should I use this opportunity to announce our relationship? For the sake of Quan Yi, I don't need to go so far. Mo Ting was waiting for Hua Rong to make their move. Whether they wanted to extort him or had other plans, Mo Ting hoped they wouldn't delay for too long. In that case, you should use your skills and play with that jerk. What do you think? Didn't he know whose woman he was messing with? Of course. Before Tong Ning closed her eyes, she said one last thing. I feel disgusted when my name is mentioned next to his. Okay. Tong Ning did not hear the word okay. Even if she had heard it, she wouldn't have understood what it meant. Because, as soon as Mo Ting returned home, he instructed Fang Yu to release photos of him and Tong Ning that had never been seen by the public. And his tacit acceptance also made the couple very excited. The couple's names quickly appeared on the search rankings, completely suppressing the popularity of Quan Yi's photos. Not only this, Mo Ting also gave Fang Yu a phone call. Keep our names at the top of the search rankings. That way, Tong Ning will feel better. Chapter 292. Fang Yu felt like he was about to break down. Mo Ting had asked him to release a photo of the two of them at Hai Rui's celebration dinner just to make Tong Ning feel better. Did he have to be such a slave to his wife? What do we do next? Use the company's name to warn Star King not to create trouble and tell Quan Yi to clarify the truth, Mo Ting said straightforwardly. But that spoiled brat won't compromise. Isn't he trying to blow things up this time? So, after the situation escalates, Hai Rui will hold a press conference and invite Tong Ning's rumored boyfriend to attend. Let's see what Tong Ning has done to him. Mo Ting said calmly, there's no need to save face for Star King. Since the spoiled brat likes to play around so much, it's reasonable for him to embarrass Star King. I've long heard that Star King's shareholders have expressed a strong interest in the Quan family's management rights, Fang Yu continued. Hearing this, Mo Ting lowered his right hand and quickly hung up. The gaze in his eyes was deep and sharp. After all, Imperial Star wasn't the only one who was fighting for power. Recently, there were also people in Hai Rui that wanted to create big news. The internet was in an uproar because of Quan Yi's exposure of the photos. Naturally, there was a lot of fighting going on. However, this time, her fans were no longer fighting alone. Before leaving the country, Tong Ning had promised Mo Ting that she would treat her fans well from now on. So, she used Long Jie's account, logged onto social media and appeared in the group chat. This time, our Tong Ning must have been slandered again. Why can't these people get used to seeing our Tong Ning do well? I'm jealous our Tong Ning and Mo Ting are together. But, if we go and fight, we'll really attract criticism. What did my Ning do wrong? She's always being slandered. This won't do. In a moment, I'll go down and count how many times my Xiao Ning has been slandered. We've really been beaten and bullied everywhere. We've really been slandered in all sorts of ways. We've been so angry that we've cried. As soon as Tong Ning saw this, she immediately used her identity as Long Jie and said, "Pass me some tissues." At first, the fans in the group did not notice. But, as soon as one of them saw Long Jie's profile picture, they finally realized what was going on. Slow down. Was that Tong Ning's assistant? Long Jie, hurry and tell us how Tong Ning is. Sigh, I don't think she would dare to say anything. I'm fine, Tong Ning replied straightforwardly. I'm fine, not she's fine. The fan group was suddenly in an uproar. In just a few seconds, the words I'm fine had completely disappeared. Am I seeing things? Did that person say I'm fine? Has Long Jie gone crazy? Tong Ning looked at the disbelieving replies that quickly appeared on the screen. She typed another line of words, if it's time to do it, then do it, don't be afraid. I'm not familiar with President Quan of Starking, so don't let yourselves be wronged. If you can't win, tell me, I'll help. Are you Tongning? Tongning was stunned for a moment before she took a selfie and sent it to the group. I am. With the words I am you and the photo, the fans went all out and sent Tongning flying. At the same time, the other fans that were offline received all sorts of notifications. Not long after, the number of people in the group increased by a few times. Luckily, Long Jie was the admin, so Tongning couldn't chat with everyone. All she could do was place an announcement at the top. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. This was Tongning's usual way of doing things. Loyal fans all knew this was the type of person Tongning was. So, with Tongning's support, the fans finally felt confident. They believed in Tongning because they felt that brains were a good thing, but not everyone had it. Because, anyone with a normal IQ would understand this. Not to mention, Mo Ting was Tongning's manager and was bound by Mo Ting in every way. Even if Mo Ting wasn't Tongning's manager, anyone with eyes wouldn't give up on Mo Ting for the sake of Quan Yi. As for Tongning, no matter how you looked at her, it was impossible to tell that she was blind. So, the fans' trust in Tongning was 100%. With the addition of Tongning's sudden appearance in the fan group, it didn't take long for the rope to be twisted and there was no longer a need to hold back. It turned out, being able to get close to a group of people that liked you could give you a sense of existence and satisfaction. Tongning was cold, but that didn't mean she was cold-blooded. In the past, she didn't care about her fans because she wasn't capable enough. She had to keep moving forward. If she had no status, how could she protect her fans? But now, she had the ability and the confidence. So, it was now her turn to protect her fans. Not long after, Beijing was plunged into darkness. Mo Ting returned home from Hai Rui with a cold aura. Seeing Tongning sitting on the sofa looking at her fans' messages, he sat down beside her and pulled her into his embrace. Now, I can see your smile every time I go home. Ning, you've changed. Tongning put down her phone and leaned into Mo Ting's embrace. Have I changed for the better or for the worse? Haven't you noticed? In the beginning, your heart was hard. Even when you trusted me, it was forced because you knew it was good for you. But, as time passed, you softened. But, for a period of time, you didn't want to believe in this world. But now, you've opened up. You want to interact with the outside world, you want to share some good things and you're even willing to argue with me. I feel, the Tongning now has a real body of flesh and blood. After hearing this, Tongning was a little surprised. She never expected. She had always thought she hadn't changed much. But now that she thought about it, she was indeed like Mo Ting said. That's because you've treated me well and made me willing to believe that there are people in this world that are willing to give up without any regrets. I first believed in you before I was willing to believe in this world again, Tongning said with tears in her eyes. President Mo, as expected, only after being treated gently by someone can you understand love. Mo Ting reached out his hand to wipe away Tongning's tears and placed a kiss on her eyelashes. He then smiled, okay, I'm going to go have a shower. Don't look at your phone for too long, it's not good for your eyes. Plus, why are you crying? Our life will continue to be this happy. So, even if Quan Yi slandered you, don't be afraid. Tongning nodded her head as she wiped away her tears. I've never been afraid. I have you. In that case, let's wait for a good show. This time, I'm going to make Star King cough up something good as an apology. After speaking, Mo Ting stood up, removed his jacket and headed for the bedroom. A good show. President Mo didn't just want to punish Star King, right? Tongning thought to herself. After all, this black-bellied man had even released a photo of them and dominated the search rankings. Chapter 293. Before going to bed, Hu Jingjing gave her a phone call to ask about the truth and whether she had provoked the spoilt heir. Tongning held onto her phone and laughed. Who asked him to be the heir of Star King? He can do whatever he wants without caring about other people's feelings. In the end, it's all because of President Mo. Hu Jingjing was aware that Mo Ting had never given Quan Yi any face. So, this was simply his way of revenge. You don't need to be so clear between us. Let's meet up tomorrow. I'll go to your house. As soon as Hu Jingjing heard Tongning wanted to go to her house, she suddenly remembered she hadn't told Tongning that she had moved into Fang Yu's home. Previously, Mo Ting had picked up on the phone. So, now that Tongning actually brought it up, she didn't know where to start. I'm currently packing my luggage. My house is in a mess. The auditions for Fashion Week have already started. Okay, I'll keep in touch. After speaking, Tongning was about to hang up the phone. However, a man's voice could be heard on the other side of the phone. Have you packed your luggage? Fang Yu strode into the guest room and noticed Hu Jingjing's bed was in a mess. I remember your manager and assistant are both women, aren't they? Jingjing. Hu Jingjing glared at Fang Yu and pointed to the phone in her hand. Fang Yu understood, but he did not keep quiet. He knew Hu Jingjing only had one friend, Tongning. So, he grabbed the phone from Hu Jingjing's hand and said, Tongning is packing her luggage. She has an early flight tomorrow and needs to rest. Tongning recognized Fang Yu's voice and could roughly guess the relationship between the two. Previously, when she tried to matchmake them, the two of them refused to fall in love. But now that she had given up, the two of them were together on their own. When it came to love, it was hard to tell if it was good or bad. Are you at her house? She's already moved in, Fang Yu explained. In that case, you guys should get some rest. Tongning did not want to disturb them too much. She was simply happy for Hu Jingjing. But, Fang Yu's child? What else did she say? Hu Jingjing asked as she watched Fang Yu put down his phone. Fang Yu helped her close her luggage and turned around with a smile. She asked us to get some rest. Actually, I was just about to tell you that I spilled the lotion on the bed. Fang Yu put down Hu Jingjing's suitcase and noticed the puddle of water on the bed. He picked up Hu Jingjing's pillow and grabbed onto her wrist. Tonight, sleep in my room. Before we part, I'll be your pillow. Meanwhile, Tongning put down her phone. Seeing Mo Ting had not returned to the bedroom, she went to the study room and sat down beside him. Why aren't you asleep? Jingjing seems to be with Fang Yu. Tongning leaned on Mo Ting's shoulder as her gaze fell upon the documents in Mo Ting's hands. Isn't that what you've always hoped for? You have to trust your own eyes. In that case, you don't need to read it anymore. Don't you still need to attend the Super IP launch conference tomorrow? Tongning took the documents from Mo Ting's hands and held onto his hand as they returned to the bedroom. The next day, Mo Ting was getting changed in the walk-in closet when Lu Che gave him a phone call saying that Quan Yi was stirring up trouble again. He had posted an explicit poem on his social media page, expressing his admiration for the love between a man and a woman. Quan Yi did not mention anyone, but it was obvious he was secretly snatching her away from Mo Ting. Mo Ting had posted the poem to the top of the news yesterday as a way to demonstrate his power. By doing this, Quan Yi was obviously hinting to the public that he and Tongning had reached a certain level of intimacy. Mo Ting did not say a word as he put on his grey checkered suit and walked out of the walk-in closet. He then reminded Tongning, who was preparing breakfast, "You don't have work to do today, don't leave the house." "Are you trying to hide the poem from me?" Tongning asked quietly. "I'm just afraid you might get hurt in the chaos outside." Tongning handed a glass of milk to Mo Ting and nodded her head. "I'll stay at home and watch the show. Don't look at the comments online. I can already imagine what they will say. It doesn't make much of a difference whether you look at it or not." By doing this, Quan Yi had forcefully removed her clothes. Even if the incident passed in the future, it would still leave a stain on his reputation. After all, she couldn't deny that in this world, there were a lot of people that didn't like to see the truth. If there was wind, they would follow. If there was pressure, they would tear. In reality, They were simply bored and didn't care how noble a person was. I will handle it. So, without even eating breakfast, Mo Ting directly left the house. After boarding his car, he said to Lu Che, "Let's go to the press conference." Afterwards, he pulled out his phone and gave Father Quan a phone call. His voice was calm without a trace of anxiousness. "Either your son disappears, or Star King disappears." Father Quan had just found out about the despicable things his son had done and realized that he had offended Mo Ting. So, when he received this phone call, he was not surprised at all. Mo Ting was giving him a choice. President Mo. If he says one more word, then both he and Star King will disappear. Father Quan was shocked. Just as he was about to explain, Mo Ting had already hung up the phone. He then pulled out his laptop, wrote up a statement in the car and sent it to Fang Yu. Number 1, warn Star King. Number 2, release a statement. Number 3, hold a press conference at 3 p.m. to release the video evidence. Number 4, warn the public. This is a warning to the media. By the end of the day, we need to do a good job on the surface. As for what he needed to do, he would naturally do it in a moment. Fang Yu did not dare to delay as he instructed his legal department to contact Star King. If they didn't restrain Quan Yi, Hai Rui was going to use force. Hai Rui has already made their move. They've already sent a lawyer's letter to Star King. I think this Quan Yi is sick in the head. Does he think everyone is stupid? But, he clearly knows he's going to be slandered, yet he still released a photo. Isn't that true love? From what I see, Hai Rui and Star King are simply fighting over a woman. How boring. Tangning has been scolded quite badly by passers-by that don't know the truth. If she comes out to explain, she will be scolded. If she doesn't, she will still be scolded. She's in quite a difficult position. I still insist on being paired with Tangning. President Mo isn't stupid. If Tangning really betrayed him, he would have kicked her out a long time ago. There's no way he would continue to protect her. President Mo, when are you going to step out and speak up for Tangning? The fan's question was also what Long Jie wanted to ask. Especially after Quan Yi's actions worsened, Long Jie was so angry that she stormed over to Hyatt Regency. Tangning, I know what you want to say. But, I trust Mo Ting, Tangning replied as she held onto the book in her hand. I know what he wants to do. I know better than anyone how much effort he put into this. After all, Mo Ting was well aware that he needed to personally speak this time. Chapter 294. Plus, I can't stand out and retaliate against Quan Yi, because that would lower Mo Ting's status. Mo Ting and I are one. I can't treat myself like a jerk. But, what else can I do? All I can do is trust him. Long Jie rubbed her chin in thought for a moment before she suddenly said excitedly to Tangning, I heard from Lu Che that a shareholder from Star King is trying to seize control of the company. The more Quan Yi loses, the more dangerous the Quan family's position will be. Seizing control means the shares will be in turmoil. Long Jie, go find out how Star King's shares are distributed. You also want Star King? Long Jie was a little surprised. But, although you have made a lot of money this quarter, it will still be difficult for you to acquire the shares. I'm just trying to find out. What are you thinking? Tangning looked at Long Jie and shook her head. Perhaps, Mo Ting will be useful when the time comes. But, I don't think he needs us to find out anything. Don't underestimate me. Actually, a lot of important information is spread through small channels like ours. After speaking, Long Jie stood up from the sofa. After confirming that Tangning didn't need company, she quickly left Hyatt Regency. She was going to show off her skills. 10 a.m. The IP drama Evil Child, which was based on an online novel, held its press conference. This highly popular online novel was directed by a top domestic director and produced by the head of Hai Rui's film division. Featuring all the top actors and actresses in the country, it was known as the most anticipated drama of the year. Mo Ting attended the press conference. Of course, he received as much attention as the main creator of the drama. As a few of the actors were from Hai Rui, they were inevitably asked questions about Tongning and Mo Ting. Of course, this was happening backstage during the press conference that lasted for a few hours. Although the actors were asked questions that had nothing to do with the drama and themselves, they still replied politely, "We trust President Mo. Do you also trust our junior sister?" Mo Ting left the press conference accompanied by a few of the people in charge. His footsteps were a little slow. It seemed he was deliberately waiting for the reporters to approach him. After being surrounded, his expression remained calm. Meanwhile, the people in charge behind him had to pretend to be serious as they waited. "President Mo, can you respond to the most popular questions of the moment? Which hot topic do you want to talk about?" Mo Ting wasn't happy with the reporter's cowardice, so he subconsciously asked. The reporter observed Mo Ting's expression. After confirming he had the desire to answer, he gathered his courage and asked, It's about the love triangle between Tongning and the heir of Star King." "I'm afraid I can't answer your question because it's not something I know how to play with," Mo Ting replied to the camera. The reporter froze for a moment before realizing Mo Ting's answer was a clarification. So, she pressed on, "In that case, what is Tongning's current condition? What was his reaction after knowing about this?" She was very calm. As for her reaction, she didn't have any special reaction because she wasn't familiar with him. Apart from last time at the award ceremony where he strongly protected her, this was the first time he had spoken about her in public. As neither of them were the type to explain themselves, even though the public had already gone crazy with rumors about their relationship, Mo Ting had never mentioned a single word about Tongning. Even though they were practically inseparable, at least at a public event like this, he had never mentioned Tongning. But today, Mo Ting spoke up. She claimed that Tongning and Quan Yi weren't close. This was a way of clarifying the truth. He didn't say much, he simply said they weren't close. But he had already drawn a line between Tongning and Quan Yi. In other words, Tongning wasn't affected at all. If it has nothing to do with her, how much does she need to be affected? Mo Ting asked. What about the meeting between Tongning and the heir of Star King that day in Paris? As for whether or not they met, Hai Rui will release the evidence this afternoon. After speaking, Mo Ting signaled for his men to push the reporters away and leave the press conference. This was Mo Ting's response as Tongning's manager to the public. What did they mean? What joke were they talking about? Did they have anything to do with my artist? My model was just an ignorant bystander. She had no idea that she had been met like this. My Tongning has nothing to do with Star King. Don't drag her down to the same level. Actually, we were just watching the show. Although his response wasn't very formal, it was Mo Ting's attitude. Not long after, Mo Ting's response hit the headlines. Although Mo Ting spoke in a serious tone, what he was trying to say was, "Oh, so you are talking about my Tongning. Haha, just imagine how President Mo will deal with Tongning when he gets home. How will you thank me for taking the blame for your husband?" Since Mo Ting denied that Tongning and Quan Yi are in a relationship, does that mean Quan Yi is lying? Our Quan Yi is a spoiled brat. Why would he vent his anger on a model that has been ridden by tens of thousands of people? Isn't he lowering himself? A model that has been ridden by tens of thousands of people is about to explode. She won't admit to cheating. Wait, President Mo mentioned that Hai Rui is going to release evidence. I wonder what it will be. I've finally heard news about Tongning from President Mo. Oh God, it hasn't been easy. The two of them have really kept a low profile. Harais, I've already gotten used to thinking about it. When will the two of them actually exchange sweets? Are the two of you lovers? Please don't be so ambiguous. Let's sit back and wait for Hai Rui's press conference. Online, the discussions were still filled with all sorts of voices. But, after Mo Ting's response, the scolding towards Tong Ning lessened. Everyone knew that Mo Ting couldn't be bothered to waste his breath, let alone come up with a lie to deal with the public. That was even more out of his league. After the press conference, Mo Ting returned to Hai Rui and gave Fang Yu a phone call. Contact Star King and tell Quan Yi to attend this afternoon's press conference. If he doesn't come, he will suffer the consequences. President, what about Tong Ning? Do you want me to bring her here as well? No need, Mo Ting replied calmly. Tong Ning had said that she was disgusted by the sight of Quan Yi. So, for the sake of his wife's stomach, he couldn't allow Quan Yi to appear in front of her again. Okay, I understand. I will take full responsibility. Afterwards, Mo Ting hung up the phone and gave Lu Che a call. Help me register a personal social media account. I need to use it this afternoon, Mo Ting instructed. Lu Che froze for a moment. He had a feeling Mo Ting was planning something big. After all, Mo Ting had never used social media before. So, why else would he suddenly want to use it? It must be because he wanted to announce something, or perhaps, make something public. I understand, President. I will prepare it before the press conference, Lu Che replied quickly. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.